And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 50th episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm your host, Matty Allen, with ChrispyMan of HexFire.io, Brisology, and Scotty doesn't know or does know.
Yeah.
Doesn't know. Come on.
So is that a Euro Trip reference?
Yes, 100%.
All
I
right.
love that movie.
So when people go like, "Yeah, Scotty, you do know," it's like, I mean, I guess, sure, but it's all just Euro Trip stuff. I'm not like not getting like ego in there or whatever.
Awesome. Well, everybody hit the like and subscribe button. This is going to be a great episode today. Along with the normal commentary that we do on Richard Hart and HEX tokens, we will also be talking about the PulseChain incentive token. And that's why we brought Scotty Does Know onto the stream. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time.
Well, I got to tell you guys that I'm pretty impressed with the impromptu HEX meetup that we put on in Utah in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, how was your HEX meetup on Saturday?
Oh man, it was a blast. And I know Brisology also did a meetup.
Yep.
How did that go?
Oh, it was so much fun. Got to meet a bunch of people. I met some I re-met some people that I've met on the A-Bit and Patrick's 5555 tour.
Yes.
And I was like, man, you guys look so familiar. Where have I seen you from? And then I realized, I'm like, oh, I was talking to you in the hallway at one of their things. And so I'm like, and they're like, oh yeah, we remember you. So that was a lot of fun. You know, there was some fresh new faces down there, and it was great. It was a great time.
That is awesome. Yeah, we had a great time in Salt Lake City. We had we had 25 people show up. It was myself and Fashion Coder and Hexray Vision and Hexiest Man in the World. So those are the YouTubers
Nice.
who were there. So it was a blast. And I saw that Altcoin Daily commented that.
Yeah, did you see that? I saw that too. Yeah.
I know. I wonder if you saw like some of our pictures, and then like that's what prompted that. It had to be, right?
Yeah. You and I both had separate HEX meetups, and he was jealous, and he gave us free advertising for 170,000 eyeballs.
Well, these guys got to be scratching their head, you know, like what the hell's going on? Because, you know, at first to be like, oh, this is just crap. These people are just, putting up a job here, but it's much more organic than that. After a while, they just can't ignore it.
Yeah, Altcoin Daily's been a HEX hater for a while. He just likes to engage and troll the community. He loves doing that.
Yeah, well, we're gonna keep doing meetups and having a great time. If people haven't gotten tickets yet to Hexpo Miami, I'm doing a meetup at the Bitcoin conference. Last year it was amazing, and so we're gonna do it even bigger this year. Go to hexpomiami.com to get your ticket.
Expo Miami.
That's right.
Expo.
So look, we got an update from Richard Hart this week. The HEX price is pumping. You know, there's still 24-hour HEX spaces going on for the past 13 months and some change. So there's a lot to be thankful for, I'd say. And, but one of the things that we tried to cover last week on the show was the PulseChain incentive token. And the reason I wanted to start the conversation last week was because I think there's agreement that it hasn't been covered very much. And so now I'm not sure exactly what the format, or, we can go around the room and I'll ask Scotty questions, or people can put questions in the chat. But first off, can you tell us like kind of an overview of like, is this going to be some kind of like combination between what Richard has said publicly about how the PulseChain incentive token would work when it comes to liquidity providing on PulseX, and is it going to be kind of like a pancake swap?
Yeah, it should be exactly like that. I mean, Richard's not really a fan of the whole liquidity farming kind of spiel because it's all degen garbage. That's why he hates it.
Yes.
It's not like the hold mentality and to not trade and to trade mentality. that's why he's not a fan of the whole like incentive token thing. It doesn't mean it's not going to maybe probably pump and be one of the better performing tokens because Degens is just they do their own Degen thing. But that's how you get the whole liquidity locus and that come over, and it's going to be interested to actually bridge liquidity over into PulseChain is by having that incentive token. So it's actually kind of funny though because like people talk about like PulseX, like the price gains and stuff from comparing it to like PancakeSwap and Quick. But in reality, those tokens are like Quick and QuickSwap and PancakeSwap only pump because of that liquidity farming, dynamic. That's not in the PulseX token. So I think the PulseX token in general though is going to be a very good performing token. I haven't seen anything like that with the whole buy and burn kind of thing. I haven't really looked around to other dexes that maybe have that feature. I only know things like PancakeSwap, QuickSwap. Those are really only dexes I really SushiSwap, and those don't have that kind of buy and burn feature. So it's going to be interesting.
So just to add some context here for everybody, Richard Hart is the one who created HEX, and is developing his second token, PulseChain, and third token, PulseX. And then some people would consider the free copy of HEX on PulseChain the fourth Richard Hart token. And what we're wanting to cover today, along with all of the commentary that makes for a good conversation, is that fifth token by Richard Hart that has to do with it's now, is it called the incentive token? Is it called PRT? Like what is it even called?
I don't even know if that's even going to be by Richard Hart.
Okay, explain.
Well, it was called the PRT token, which was what I understood was that meant third party.
Yeah.
So if someone were to create a new coin, they're a third party coin, and then they could introduce that coin to the exchange, and then people could single-sided stake it, I believe.
Yeah. So the party token is just like a placeholder. It's like a make-believe thing right now, just to have people be able to test the functionality of. It's just like in PancakeSwap when you want to. It's like the pooling side of it, not the farming side. So if you want to stake your PulseX, you stake it in those pools, and token projects will be like, I want some adoption, so maybe I'll give up 1 to 5% of my token supply, and I'll throw it into the PulseX pools, and then then anyone could just stake their PulseX in those pools and then earn those tokens. So the whole party thing or part, that's just like placeholder. It doesn't mean anything right now, but it's funny you say that about the incentive token stuff because we don't actually know if that's going to be the name or not. He's never given. Richard's never given an update as to what the name is going to be. Every time we've asked, he gives like it could be, sure, or I think he has another name planned. We have no idea though. But
there has to be a different name. It can't be the name.
He kind of hates it, so he could just say incentive token, just like to kind of troll a little bit. So it could just be incentive token because it literally is incentive for like liquidity to bring it over. So
you would think. I don't know, like something about like getting the domains and all the stuff that you need to get ahead of time. I don't know. I think he would go with a different name that has all that stuff. He doesn't have to worry about that. Just my opinion, though.
You might, because it's not the best name ever. But other people have made like ridiculous names for tokens. So why not? It doesn't matter. Look at PulseChain. The origin of that name, really. So. Which is that's kind of fun, but
yeah, I had to think about that 14 times.
Yeah, I don't mean to brag or whatever, but I kind of I want to throw that out there. I don't know if there's any proof, but I came up with PulseChain, the name. I was first in the chat. Yes, I was first in chat that said it. I have no proof because I didn't save it, but I did throw it out there as like a joke, like to kind of just have a laugh. But I think then people picked up on it. And everyone started calling it because it is hilarious. And everyone goes like, yeah, chain. Like there's all these like, V chain, all these other kind of coins that just throw chain at the end. So I was like, okay, PulseChain. Why not? That's funny.
Nice.
Yeah, you gotta advertise and brag about that more.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, I threw it out there in the chat, but
That's a pretty big deal.
There's any
Yeah,
proof,
just don't sue us, Craig. That's all. It'll be good. Hey, you
Yeah.
might have been the one that did that. I mean, I remember the genesis of the name coming up, but I don't remember who exactly did it. You know. But it makes
Well, and-
perfect sense, and
Yeah.
it's cringe, but also cool. You know, like
I think it's a cool sounding word. You know, it's like when I was a kid, you know, all the future guns were called pulse guns or pulse lasers.
I mean, now I don't think about it at all. Like, I don't even think about the joke anymore. Like, I associate PulseChain with, you know, like our layer one, our blockchain. So I don't even,
Yep.
I don't even consider it like a joke anymore, which is funny.
Yeah, we're way past that now.
Yeah,
it's been so long.
It's just a cool word now.
It is. Definitely. But yeah, so for the incentive token and stuff, it's going to be fun. So like, if you're like an RH maxi, so to speak, even there's going to be so much stuff that you could do on PulseX to earn yield. It's going to be crazy.
Let's break it down.
Yeah, I mean, that's even if you want to just ignore all the other tokens or like all the other projects that are coming on, which is great, you know, for adoption. Hopefully these forks, you know, people, they'll drive the other communities like the Aave fork or whatever, or you know, they'll drive them to come over. But besides all that stuff, if for yield, there's so much to do. So like with PulseX, you have like as Briz mentioned, the party token, where you can stake your PulseX for yield.
Now, please help me understand. So, in HEX, when you stake, it's a kind of a form of trustless yield, and then there are other things where people are pooling, providing liquidity. Sometimes sometimes those things are called staking. Can you help us differentiate between the types of things you're talking about, where people are risking impermanent loss versus not risking impermanent loss?
Yeah, so if you're going to get into like in order to participate with the incentive token, you have to get into that stuff. Yes, like the providing liquidity, you have to deal with impermanent loss, and impermanent loss is a big deal. I mean, it could be really bad. So
it could wreck you.
It could totally wreck you, like beyond wreck you. So you have to be really, really careful. Yeah. So like, if you're going to play around with like liquidity pools and like liquidity farming, you should be playing around with like 5 to 10% of your bag. Like, you don't go like 50%, just ape into these things. Because, I mean, let's say you want to participate in the HEX Pulse pool, right? You figure, oh, that's got to be a safe option. Why not? I'll just do that pool, and maybe I'll earn some incentive token. Maybe that'll be rewarded for that pool. Because you have to, in order to like want to do that, because you'll be earning fees from PulseX in general because you're providing liquidity, and on top of that, you'll be rewarded with the incentive token as well. So that's like how you'd want to participate. It's all these fees and stuff you'd be generating, and yield to be generating. But so let's say, so you think that HEX Pulse, that's probably got to be a relatively safe pool. Well, if Pulse pumps pretty heavy, and you got to figure that Pulse is, it's like a newer coin, so it could definitely outperform HEX. You'll probably be way better off just holding Pulse and not participating in the pool, because impermanent loss will wreck you. Because like what will happen is if the Pulse price goes up substantially more than the HEX price, you'll receive more HEX in the pool and you'll lose Pulse. That's like that balancing act. So that's what a permanent loss is. And that's why if you're going to play these liquidity farming, like it's basically degen games. It really is.
Quick question regarding that. How do you feel about providing liquidity as a exit measurement or exiting tool? So as the price runs up, you kind of like you exit.
So yeah, I love it. I mean, that's a great, instead of like you market selling, whatever, you can provide one-sided liquidity. The only problem is PulseX, that's not going to be the case. So you have to do, it's a fork of Uniswap, V2. So you have to provide equal sides to both. You can't do just one-sided. So that whole way of trying to exit, it won't exist. You can do things like limit orders. I know that'll be on PulseX, but
couldn't you add like PulseX and like a USDC on there when it becomes available, and then if the price runs up, you have equal, and it goes whoop.
I mean, that's one way to do it. Yeah, I mean, it's not like a because like in Uniswap like V3 you can be more exact like with the ranges and stuff, like how you actually want to exit. So you got to be comfortable of like the price moving, and then it's like not exact. Like you don't really like know, so to speak, like what to do, or it's not an exact thing with like Uniswap V3. But yeah, so the incentive token. So why is it not just like a I think we could talk about more like impermanent loss, I guess, in doing that. Yeah, so I think like the safer pools, so to speak, if you don't want to be like so much of gambling and stuff or whatever between the pairs, you could do like HEX, EHEX. That's definitely going to be a pair. It's probably going to be incentivized. I mean, it's all guessing games right now because we don't know what is going to be actually incentivized. But you can guess that things that because the whole point of the token is to get people to bridge liquidity over from Ethereum to PulseChain. That's the whole, and it's a big deal. I think it's one of the most important tokens in the ecosystem, believe it or not. So Richard can like hate the whole idea behind like the Degen games and stuff like that with incentive token, but he knows it's important. That's why it exists. Because you have to incentivize people to actually, that's why it's called incentive token, to bridge liquidity over. And that's what gives pricing to all these, PRC20s, supposedly with Hart's Law. So, I mean, we'll see if people actually do it too. But that's why you need to have a valuable and not like a dump only coin for incentive. It has to have decent value in order for people to want to bridge over their coins or tokens, I should say.
Yeah, that's an interesting relationship because people are going to have this whole bag, this whole copy on PulseChain that they got for free. And so are there going to be like, can there be a pool between the chains of the same asset on either side? Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
you mean like the ERC20 versus PRC20?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the case. So in order to make the incentive token like valuable, so to speak, is that you have to incentivize first, you have to give the most rewards to the pairs that include the incentive token. So like if you want to break it down like simply, like let's say this is going to be like an inflate only kind of token. It's going to just constantly inflate the incentive token. That's why people think, oh, inflation, it's going to dump forever. But you can see everything inflates. It's just a matter of can the demand outpace that supply hitting the market. So for the incentive token, you have to incentivize I'm going to say incentive a million times, but you have to incentivize the incentive token pairs the most. So like, let's say we can use Ethereum Hex as like the example. So you'll have the EHEX Inc. pool, and you'll want to allocate, let's say there's 100 ink tokens, like you'll give that pool like 60 ink, so to speak.
Okay.
And then you'll have like the EHEX hex pair. Okay. Then maybe you want to incentivize that. You'll give like 20 ink to that pool, or like 30 ink to that pool. You'll see that that's why you're going to incentivize the ink pair more. So people, because the only way to get ink is by you providing liquidity or buying the token. So if you want to actually participate in that heavily incentivized pool, you got to buy ink. So that's what drives the price up of that incentive token in general. That's the whole trick to it. That's what QuickSwap did. PancakeSwap. That's the same stuff.
What do you think like the OA is going to do when it comes to the incentive token?
Yeah, so I mean, this whole thing goes based off like the DAO or whatever, the PulseX DAO for voting, and you know that it's whoever has the most PulseX tokens is going to decide the pools, and we know who has the most PulseX tokens. So that it's just like every other. It's just funny. It's like the Hex community. We're more aware of like the tokenomics and like the I don't know, the government side. Like we know it's all fake governance or whatever. Like when PancakeSwap has like a vote, they treat it like, oh, it's a vote, like it's governance. This is great. Like Uniswap has like the governance or whatever.
We
But it's
see
really just
the invisible hand that moves the markets. We know it's there.
yeah.
It's not the invisible hand.
So yeah, so it's like we know like the big uni whales really control all the governments, right?
Yes.
So we know who's going to control the governments of PulseX. So it's not going to be like the public retail that's going to control these pools and have it all out of whack, where it's not going to be able to help grow PulseChain adoption overall. So
Are you trying to say my vote doesn't matter?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much everyone's vote really doesn't matter, really technically. There's going to be other kind of voting, I guess, that would matter. There's like community voting, I guess, too. That's going to go on. So I don't know how that's going to work because I never really used PancakeSwap like in detail. I've looked it over. I've actually used QuickSwap because the Hex community tried it out. That's how I know about.
I remember
QuickSwap.
trying it.
Yeah, it's how I know about all these degen liquidity games and stuff. Is because of QuickSwap and everything.
The last time I kind of looked into it, which was kind of a long time ago, so it might not be accurate information. I just figured I heard there was like multiple incentive tokens, and then the community would vote on which one gets distributed that week or that time period.
No, there'll just be one. Just be one incentive token.
Well, I'm sorry, maybe like a third-party token.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah, I mean so that could be more community driven too. To decide what if there's like a list, let's say like a project, whatever. Just once they'll probably submit something within the DAO to try and get their token on. Then the community will probably vote them in or something like that.
Exactly.
So that'd be the case. Yeah, that's where like the community might matter for that. And actually have a say, I guess. But yeah, so in terms of like yield generating, there's going to be like a ton of stuff to do. Like, so there is PulseX, so the single-sided staking of PulseX with the party token stuff, the third-party stuff. This switch to actually forking Ethereum now for PulseChain and not forking BSC is huge. Because before staking Pulse would earn like no rewards, practically nothing, and now you're going to get like 4 to 5% of your bag now by staking Pulse. Probably, if you just look at like what Ethereum has done, it's just and like just imagine what PulseChain will do. It's going to be the same kind of yield in that like 4 to 5%, which is a big deal because like before it was like nothing. You could see like on. You could even see on testnet, like people would earn like 1 pulse or whatever, and that's like as a validator, and then you have people that delegated to that validator, so it's even less than 1 pulse that everybody else would get. So it was like a joke.
So for those of you living underneath a rock, basically the idea here is that PulseChain is no longer deflationary. It's going to be following the same pattern as Ethereum, which means it can inflate or deflate. Is that correct? Yeah.
So it's not default deflationary, but it can definitely be deflationary if there's enough like activity on the chain.
It's inflationary with a burning mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah, following the whole stuff like with Ethereum.
And that does create more incentives for people to play the game.
Yeah, more transactions is only better for the chain.
Yeah. Like you said, being a validator before didn't pay very well, and now it'll pay 4 to 5%, right? Or a staker on PulseChain.
It's going to pay that's like the APY is what it basically is. Usually everybody's like 4 to 5%, which is huge. And another thing too is like if people are worried about having to run like network equipment, which it's going to be a hassle probably to be a validator and to run equipment. But But there's going to be decentralized solutions where people don't have to run computer equipment, and they could just stake to like a pool, because that already exists on Ethereum. They have things like Rocket Pool, whatever, where you can stake all your coins and not give up your private keys, whatever, to an entity.
I know
Which is
Alex. I know
Yes, go
Alex
ahead.
was thinking about making little, I don't know, nodes that he could sell to people that would help validate the system.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you gotta love
Make
Alex.
it
What he's
easier.
doing. Yeah, you gotta love what he's doing. I mean, he's building out a whole server center too. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he does something like does like a Rocket Pool kind of thing, so people don't have to do their own computer equipment.
That's what he's up to.
Maybe. I mean, I have no idea. We have no idea, obviously, but that would be great if he provides that service.
Yeah, I haven't heard any mention of that. But that doesn't mean somebody isn't thinking about that. But I am very intrigued with the idea of the plug and play validators. And if I understood correctly, depending on the technology, it can have multiple validators on one board, and so you might be able to have 5, 6, or maybe I thought I heard the number 10, but I don't know enough about the subject. But in any case, multiples within the same box that you just plug into your router, and I think that would be a huge boon, for our community, provided it's done correctly and safe and secure and all that.
I don't really understand like the benefit of having multiple validators. So I don't really understand that side.
Oh, because the maximum reward you can get is based on having 32 million pulse. And so basically if you have 64 million pulse, you're still only getting the rewards as if you had 32 million, unless you split it into separate wallets. That's my interpretation of what that means.
Yeah, well, that's the minimum staking requirement. I don't think it doesn't cap out.
I thought the tweet said maximum.
No, so it's 32.
Max efficient. Sorry, go ahead, Scotty.
Yeah, so it's just following. We're basically like a real copy of Ethereum now. So however Ethereum works is how PulseChain is going to work. So minimum staking for Ethereum is 32. You have to have at least 32 to become a validator. So for PulseChain, it's going to be supposedly 32 million. That's just the minimum required to be a validator. It's just the minimum. So, but you can have more pulse. It won't matter, so to speak. It's not like you get capped out somewhere.
Yeah, because I was also thinking about that too, Maddie. And basically, the way I was thinking about it is like 32 million is not that much in a system with 130 trillion coins. And so to prevent, someone needing to have like 30 validators just to do like 1 billion coins, and they have like 20 billion coins, it has to be stackable.
All right, I found it. You guys can explain to me what you think this means, because I think I know what it means,
and I have an interpretation of it too.
But just to add on to what Briz just said, you can look at it, the supply like 130 trillion, like there's a ton of coins, and 32 million is not a lot. But I mean, if you go by like the average sack, balance or whatever, or amount, that 32 million is kind of like, what is it, like 2-3 grand? So that's just starting out. So that's a pretty decent chunk just to be able to stake. So that prevents like the whole.
it's $3,200.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. So the tweet from Richard from February 18th, I did a stream on this, and it says under the checklist of things, 32 million PLS validator deposit and max effective balance.
And I'm not sure what he's saying there with max effective balance.
So I was interpreting that as like, you have to have 32 million, but if you have more than 32 million, then you're not getting any more rewards than somebody who has 32 million. So that's what max effective balance means to me.
So I have an interpretation of that. I can see it's about getting rewards. And so if you have 32 million in a validator, that's like the max efficient. But if you were to put in, say, 64 million, maybe you'd get like 9/10. And then if you put in another 32 million, maybe you get 8/10 reward. So the
That's not what
reward
this says.
falls down.
No, it says max effective balance, not like incremental effective balance.
Well, max per, validator.
Yeah, so I think you have to run multiple instances of validators if you want to earn more.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see when it goes live.
Yeah, I'm not really sure because I mean that sounds like you're playing a lot with the main code in order to make that kind of change. Then, so like you can obviously make tweaks. Like we made tweaks to the blocks, like 10-second blocks instead of 12 or 13 seconds for Ethereum. But I feel like if you're changing that, that's like a major change. I think. But I mean, I'm not a dev, or whatever. So obviously, I don't know what you cannot change to really start playing too much with the code. So I don't know what he's trying to say with the max effective thing. I mean, my understanding is that you stake more, it doesn't matter, like that.
Yeah, it just seems odd. Like if someone that wants to validate with like 10 billion coins, if they have to break it up into chunks of 32 million, it just seems like a lot.
Yeah. Good for the little guy if that's the case.
Yeah, maybe it's to keep out the whales and to allow the little guys to.
There was a silly whale penalty in HEX. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he can maybe put some spin on it, like game theory that we don't know about. Yeah, 100%.
Well, good. Yeah, that's an interesting point of debate that people can talk about going forward. I mean, that's the hope here, is that we can keep the discussion alive and keep learning as much as we can about how the game theory could unfold with PulseChain. I wouldn't be surprised if Richard made changes to the Ethereum 2.0 game theory, if he was really confident that would perform better. And especially if we can draw back to like something that he did previously that worked, for example, the silly whale penalty in HEX, that was basically where if you had more than a certain amount of Bitcoin in your wallet, then if you split it up into separate wallets, you would be able to free claim more HEX, but there was kind of a maximum amount that you could free claim.
Yeah, that's for the whole BTC free claiming stuff to get free tokens. They could dump later, because if they're going to be dumb enough to like not really look into the system, then they probably just want to dump anyway. So that was a smart decision to probably just do that penalty. I mean, maybe he could incorporate something like that for staking. I don't see the positives of trying to disincentivize that, but maybe. I mean, I'm not Richard. I'm not genius level smart. So I can't think that far ahead.
Well, that'll be fascinating to see how that part plays out. What do you think, ChrispyMan?
I think I'm not a genius either, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, come on. That's such a cop-out.
Well, listen, I still don't understand all the rules about everything that's going on. But I'll tell you what I was thinking about as Scotty was talking. I'm glad he hit it, and I'm glad that Bruce asked the question he did, right? So I'm real interested in how people, because I hear a lot of people talking to me about them wanting to move from ETH over to Pulse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the most common description is, I'm going to sell all my HEX and I'm going to turn it into stable and move it over. And my counter is, maybe there's going to be a way to bridge, and I'll just bridge over. Maybe that's the right way, because I would prefer that, right, from a sell pressure perspective. And I don't want to pay, I don't have this plan myself, but if I was doing it, I don't want to pay the gas to do the sale, and then pay the gas to do the bridge, and then pay the gas to do a swap into the asset that I want on the other end. I would rather, pay maybe the cost of protect my assets, right? Not sell HEX, bridge it. It's basically locked for the time being, right? And then swap it on the other end for for the real HEX. So, that's one thing that's going on in my mind on this topic. Another is, I'm really waiting to see what that APY is going to be, and I'm really interested in what validation looks like, right? Because me personally, I'm probably not doing LP, right? Which means that may change, right? It may change my mind once I understand more, which means that I don't have like a delegation option for Pulse. So where do I get my yield, right? If I don't do that. So then I'm going to want a validator. And so then this is really a key question, whatever happens, because maybe I want to set up 10 validators. I don't know. And earn yield that way. So all of this affects maybe my potential game theory about what I'll do in right after launch for ratio trading. So I think I hit the question that you're asking, Maddie, about what I was thinking.
Totally.
Yeah. So on your first point, so like I don't understand people that want to pick sides in terms of like the Ethereum HEX or the Pulse HEX, like they're going to sell all for the one. Like I don't get it. I don't know why people would want to.
Because they missed the PulseChain sacrifice.
It's true, yeah, but I think the thing is though, it's like you're playing a game here where you're trying to pick a side. I don't know if that's the smartest thing if you're selling your whole Ethereum HEX bag or whatever. I mean, I could see people being in HEX to try and ride that US dollar value up, so they have more money to play with, so they could swap for Pulse later. I could see that game, all right. But like, I'm talking about even like OGs like Sharks, Dolphins, whatever, that actually want to pick a side and like sell all of their Ethereum HEX or sell all of their Pulse HEX.
Scotty, I've seen people on Twitter literally fudding PulseChain and promoting the Pulse X. They're like, don't buy PulseChain. Pulse X is way better. You're like, oh my God. Like, who are you people? Like, they're like the craziest people out there. I'm like, okay.
Oh, well, a lot of people miss the PulseChain sack. So
well, yeah, and I think for the new guys, right, that missed whether it's Pulse X or Pulse, they may not, because we don't know, and we can't really educate people until we know more, right? We don't know exactly how bridging is going to work and what pairs will exist. So it's kind of nebulous, right? I mean, we assume, but we don't know, right? And so they're assuming that the way to do it is they're going to have to sell and bridge over, because that's what happens on most other chains, right? They're going to have to somehow bridge over, some sort of stable. So maybe that's an education part. The other part, I 100% agree. I don't know what some of the guys are thinking about. I don't know if it's FUD or not, but I have heard, the emergency end staking everything and moving over, burnt earth approach,
Well, we definitely do know how like bridging is going to work in a way. So like, I mean, there's plenty of examples of bridging and using bridges and stuff. Mm-hmm. But like, so Ethereum HEX is going to be on PulseChain. So like, that's going to be EHEX. And like, I see people all the time like saying that EHEX is actually going to be called that on the Ethereum side. Like it's going to be changed and that's going to be called EHEX. No, it's like whenever you're putting an abbreviation in front of the token, that means a bridged version of that token. So if you're saying like EHEX, that means the Ethereum HEX that's now on PulseChain and bridged over. And there's going to be there's probably going to be a ton of liquidity of EHEX on PulseChain because people are going to want to bridge and pair that with HEX. So it's not called PHEX when you're on PulseChain, it's just called HEX. So that's going to be a really popular pair, EHEX and HEX, to try and actually like bond the two tokens together. So like the prices are similar in a way. So there's definitely going to be like a price disparity between the two.
Yes.
I think so. That's definitely going to exist. It's not going to be a parity. So it's going to be some sort of disparity. I don't think it's going to be a lot though. I think it might be like maybe 10, 20, 30%.
Wow.
One way or the other. I think it's going to be pretty close. Well, of course, when you're looking at the beginning, it's going to be crazy. So you could see like if Ethereum Hex dumped 50%, well, all of a sudden PulseChain Hex goes up 50%, and then it goes back the other way. It's going to be crazy in the beginning. But I think over time, I believe that it's going to hit a certain either discount or premium on one of them, and it's going to stay that way probably for infinity. Probably that's what's going to be. That's what I think. And I think that the PulseChain Hex version, I think that'll be probably at a premium, and maybe it'll only be like at a 10 or 20% premium. I think because it's cheaper to transact. So you think
kind of like the Maximus to Hex premium, how it just kind of sits there.
It's probably that's what I think. It's going to be something like that.
Do you guys think it might be possible that OA forces parity?
No.
I don't know about forcing parity.
Well, I mean, if we don't make it parity, the OA could make it parity.
No, I don't think so. I think the OA is usually very passive with and hardly ever intervenes. Only intervenes when it's vital or really necessary. Like on Big Payday, that was actually extremely vital. You can see that now. How many people got tokens and just instant dump, or the emergency end stake even too. Like these guys that don't even care and they just staked around Big Payday just to get the bonus tokens. And they just instant dump everything. So I think I think OA is really passive in general and doesn't really ever really get involved unless needed.
Yeah, I just say that with the idea of knowing Richard has said he doesn't like to see cheap hex on any chain or on either chain.
That doesn't mean parity.
Yeah, that doesn't mean parity to me either. I mean,
because
you can even
the
look
difference
at,
there. Go ahead.
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Well, the difference there is like between the OA, like forcing the market to do something is a very expensive move and only would it really can only last temporarily in the end. Although there is the argument that the OA has like 20 times what the entire market has, so maybe it could, but why wouldn't it just wait and shake out the weak hands if it ever wanted to make Hex more scarce on one chain or another?
Well, wouldn't that be a way of shaking out the weak hands? Is like
no, it'd be rewarding.
Hold on. Everyone dumps their Ethereum Hex. The price goes way down. PulseChain Hex kind of goes up, and then the OA just kind of buys those coins out of existence and kind of raises up the bar.
That's not what parity is, though.
But I'm talking about leaving all the dumpers behind.
I find it hilarious that like the Hex community, we're the only community that talks about the founder coins so fucking much. Like that's all we do is talk about that. We're the only community. I mean, I think we're just more self-aware. Like no other community is like, oh yeah, founder coins, and like that's like they talk about it in their pitch to other people. They talk about it. No other community does that. We're the only one.
You also have to remember we're on the show called Game Theory. So it's like that's kind of the bread and butter.
Well, it really is when you have you have an entity that holds so much and we don't have any evidence of it ever selling. I mean, that is unique. The founder of Ethereum, sells Ethereum. The founder of just about every coin sells. Hex is different.
That's probably why they don't want to talk about the founder coins, the other communities, because they dump the hell out of their tokens. Exactly. You can see that with Chainlink, the founder of Link, that dumps the hell out of his coins and everything. Same with Ethereum too, I guess too. The foundation. The OA's only intervened really like twice. I mean that I've seen. It's really with the obviously Big Payday was really noticeable. That everybody noticed that obviously, but the only other time was he. Or the entity, he provided buy liquidity or like buy pressure liquidity to try and stop the dumpage from happening, whatever, or maybe try and stop a prolonged bear from happening.
Death spiral.
Yeah, well, just like your
where
typical
was that at?
What price? Shit. I think it was around like 15 cents or something like that. Or I forgot. 20 cents. I forgot. It was a while ago.
Interesting.
And liquidity was provided to try and eat into the sellers, but the sellers just overpowered. And I think the OA was like, all right, fuck it. Let these people, dump the price and dump at lows, like just do natural market things. And it wasn't like a lot to try and, defend the price over a scale. It was like maybe like a test to see if it could work, I guess. Because again, I see the OA as being very passive and not really trying to intervene. So I think it was just like maybe a test to try and see.
If you look at the HEX whale bot, there's always accounts that are selling about $200,000 worth of HEX, and then there's always an account buying about that same amount.
Well, this could be like ARB bots though too, like they do that.
Yeah.
If you see right away, like the same amount back to back, those are like the ARB bots, whatever.
Or just the two sides of the same trade. Because whenever there's
a buying back dumpers.
I mean, yeah, it could be.
Could be.
Other examples of the OA like acting, I think, include I guess before I was really paying close attention was during the adoption amplifier, again, to basically stop dumpers. And that's if you believe that some of the Ethereum was recycled. Well, that's not really that's not a scam if you're looking at it as the OA isn't selling, because it basically just created more competition for the same coins. And then you've also got the example of the OA like sacrificing a significant amount. You had was it 14 billion that came in for the PulseChain sacrifice at the end, basically. And so that dilutes the people who could sell. And I think the theory there is that the OA kind of is stalking the whales that could be misbehaving.
Well, I don't know about that now, but I did some research this week because I went into understanding the HEX supply system a little bit more, right, and really digging deep into that, because maybe I didn't understand everything I thought I understood. In any case, one of the things I had to do is go look at what we believe are the associated OA addresses, and I don't show anything post-distribution that they've done. I don't see any stakes. I don't see any end stakes. I don't see any good accounting. Nothing to do with HEX. Now, there's some other activities that have taken place as far as receiving HEX for the sacrifices, and maybe some other things with Hedron and whatnot. But otherwise, very, very quiet and stable.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very quiet and stable. Now, that could change in a moment. I'm not the OA. Don't know who the OA is. Don't know what the aim is, but I can draw the conclusion that it's more likely they'll probably keep doing what they've been doing in terms of HEX, unless there was some sort of weird situation that occurred. And I think like Scotty, you'll probably say this a better, different way, but I'll throw this to you. When I finally put the supplies up on a chart together, and I did it like an area chart, and I showed all the supplies and I superimposed them against each other. What really jumped out at me was the OA stabilizes the HEX system significantly, because so much of that circulating supply is in its hands, and so much of the stake supply is in its hands, that really we're like our ecosystem, our universe is really this little solar system, right? Yes, we live in the greater universe, but we're not playing out there. We're playing in this little tiny spot, and we can't ruin things, right? It would take so much overwhelming economic force that it's impossible for somebody like a whale to come in, and a real big whale come in and screw, the system so it doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like the actual circulating supply is very small. I think it's like Yeah, isn't like, I don't know, 80% of people are actually staking, like their HEX tokens or something like that. When you look at the real circulating supply, so to speak, I think it's something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well,
70.
the adjusted number that I came up with my calcs was like 16 billion. So this is the thing, right? When you go into any token or coin, you'd be like crazy. You go, oh, look at all those tokens, and they're making more every day, and somebody's gonna jump on my head. But the real adjusted amount that we have after you take the OA coins out for circulating is 16 billion, 16,
Wow.
16 billion. But then we went one step further with it. Are you guys familiar with the inactive Bitcoin wallet
Yeah.
approach? And so in the Bitcoin world, the way they buy off the risk, right, mentally, they buy off the risk that there's not going to be a big problem with the system and with selling and prices are going to crumble by looking at how many inactive wallets there are, how many coins haven't moved in greater than a year. Now, there's probably, I understand why they do it, right? And so I can see the point of saying that things that haven't moved for a long time, probably not likely to move for a long time. Something like 42% of all of our liquid hex that's in wallets, that's part of that 16 billion, hasn't moved in greater than a year.
And how does that compare to Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's Bitcoin goes up and down depending on the timing, but sometimes it runs 50, 60%. So, but 42%, Maddie, right? And then
Wow.
when you look a little bit further back, some of that stuff hasn't moved for 2 years. Anyway, so I believe that our real circulating, adjusted, effective circulating supply is right around 10 billion.
Wow.
So it's very, very tight. It made me very bullish, right, to look at, because I'm like, man, like, oh my God. Now though, right, so that made me start looking at some other things like the bow wave, like expired stakes, like how much is coming in. But we have I think there's a lot more work to do on this, but I think we've got a very I don't want to use the word viral. I don't mean viral. But we have viral, maybe that's the right pronunciation, but a very, very strong community that has a very well working system. The engine is working. We have stakers staking all the time. We have good growth, good inflation. It's kind of crazy, but it's really,
Wow.
really interesting.
That's so cool that you've dug so deep into the data that you have observed all that. Very
Yeah,
cool.
well, what happened is I caught myself saying, Hex is getting scarce. Right? And then somebody says, well, what do you mean? And it's, well, it's just, there's less of it. Well, what do you mean there's less? We mint more every day. Right? That's how the system's set up. What do you mean there's less? Well, and then somebody just asked in the chat the pertinent question, which is, yeah, we've got it changes minute to minute, so I don't know how much is out there at the moment. But today it was running about 75 million was actually up for sale. And when you look at the last 2+ years, right, liquidity on the DEX has a downtrend for the last 2 years.
Wow.
So and that's in quantity as well as percentage of any of the supplies. So if somebody says to me, how do you know Hex is rare? Until that changes, I'm going right back to that. I said, well, listen, there are fewer coins and a fewer percentage of the tokens that people are willing to put on the market. Any of us could change our mind any day. Got it.
Sure.
Right. I mean, somebody could dip into that other 10 billion and pull some out and throw it into the exchange and cash out. But I'm going to say this, and a little subjective. If you didn't do that at the bottom of the bear, why would you do that right at the beginning of a bull? And so I think we're going to see. More tightening probably of what actually gets put up for sale, which means somebody coming in wants that 28 million, like this week when that guy bought the 28 million. Where is it going to come from? Right? I mean, somebody's got to put it up for it to be available.
And speaking of it being scarce, Hex Daily Stats says there's only about 53 million Hex available in the pools. That's only $3.5 million at 6.7 cents each.
Well, Axis has been doing a series of presentations. The last week he's been covering some of that, and you can clearly see that the ETH pool and the USDC pools are tending to get fat, and the HEX pool's getting thin, and it changes all day long, right? Because people are moving around their liquidity. So yeah, I'm right there with you because it's very low.
Thanks to Balliet Brand for the $33 super chat. Thanks for having Scotty on. This is a great discussion. I agree.
Now, who isn't happy to see Bailey at Brand, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen him in so long. Good
Hey,
to see him back on stream.
Yeah, his streams are fun. He's a great guy. It's been a while, yeah. So how come, Crispy, you don't want to play with any of the liquidity pools? That's interesting to me. Like, how come you don't want to do that stuff?
I got to learn something about that more. I think it's not like a moral or ethical rule that I would be violating. I don't trust myself yet with that, and I actually, frankly, haven't had a supply to do it with. So that's another part of it, right?
Have you played around with Uniswap like V3 at all? Not really. Like liquidity pools and that?
Just a very
little
small
bit
amount. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As
I
much as
tried
to
doing a
watch.
little bit of liquidity providing, and it was cool. It was interesting. But I eventually pulled my funds out of the liquidity pools. But it was cool. I liked it.
So what's funny is that like before my Hex days, whatever, I was like a crypto degen or whatever. Like I would do the whole liquidity farming and get wrecked and rug pulled here occasionally. And then I found, I found Richard in 2017 or whatever, but he didn't have a token for me to latch on to. So then when he finally did launch Hex, then it's like this is my thing now. But yeah, so I'm very used to that whole degen side. So I'm really excited to degen into the RH tokens with liquidity providing. So because like I don't care if I get I'm going to put up like 5% of my stuff. I don't care if I get more Hex or Pulse or if I lose some in a permanent loss or whatever, because I don't care if I get more than one or the other, because I'm only putting up like 5% or whatever. But I can't wait. That's the stuff I cannot wait for. I'm really excited for. Just doing
nice.
Sounds like you guys are like, not so much.
Correct.
How come? Why? You guys don't like yield? I don't get it.
I like trustless yield. I like where I do not have impermanent loss.
Okay. Well, I mean, trustless is more like, a guy stealing your shit. That's what I think of like trustless, so to speak.
I like not losing my coins. Whatever you want to call it. I like keeping my coins and getting more coins on top of that.
What if you get more yield to buy more Hex with that yield? Because you earn more yield.
Then somebody could always like trick me and run away with the impermanent loss. So
all right. And you can play with the EHEX Hex pair. Do that.
Like I could be right. So I could be right 10 times, and then the 11th time someone takes my entire bag.
Right? Well, that's not. That can't happen because it's like it's all trustless stuff. Like these pools, it's like we're dealing with like pure DeFi. So if like scared of someone running away with your money, so to speak.
I mean, like through impermanent loss. I mean, like, so I was playing with Quick and I was like, this sucks. Yeah. Like I'm always on the wrong side of this trade because if the price goes up on either of these things differentially, then I lose.
Yes,
instead of, compared to just holding.
I agree with you completely. So here's the problem with Quick and QuickSwap. You were playing with tokens that suck. Like you love your Hex, right? But then you got to put Hex and Quick in a pool together. Mm-hmm. So then you got to deal with the suck of Quick. Yes. Or you got to deal with, let's say, like Hex USDC. I don't think USDC sucks, but you have to deal with that gigantic and permanent loss if Hex wants to run. That you're going to get a lot more USDC. But with these pools, you're talking about HEX Pulse, PulseX Hex, EHEX Pulse X. You're talking about like stuff that you'll like. Like it's not like you're getting these like crap Quick tokens that you don't want, and you're afraid of the permanent loss.
But it's like I'm taking the risk of holding these Like if one of them does better, then I'm guaranteeing myself to not get that.
Well, that's why
Maddie,
you have to have
real
different
quick, I
allocations.
think a good pairing perhaps in the future is maybe a USDC from Ethereum over to PulseChain. I'm not sure if there's going to be a pairing of those two, if that's even possible. That seems like a good pairing. It seems like people might want to move USDC.
But then if PulseChain goes on a run,
Yes.
then I lose.
Yes.
Why would I want to do that?
Yes,
No, I'm saying
100%.
only do USDC to USDC, PulseChain to Ethereum chain.
But
No.
there's not going to be any. Well, like it would only be wrapped.
Then you'll get hella wrecked if you want to do that. So like PulseChain USDC is going to be like what? Like look at the USDC on Ethereum Fair or
Well, I'm talking
like
about
ETH Fair.
after we get a
1/10,000th of a
stable
penny.
coin over on PulseChain. I'm not talking about copied over USDC.
So then you could do stuff like USDC and DAI. Those are like bridged over versions of that.
Exactly.
But then it's like
But how much volume is there between those two on the PulseChain side?
there'll probably be a good amount of volume.
You
I
think?
can. Oh yeah, with EUSDC, 100%. With DAI,
I mean, between those two
I'm not
on
sure.
that side.
well, it's like it routes, so like it'll use it anyway, so to speak.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
All right. So Brisology, I take your point into consideration.
Yeah, it's just because the prices won't, if it's a stable coin, they shouldn't run up. And that's the whole idea.
There still is like you have to
Until
be worried.
USDC decides to like pull the plug on something.
Yeah, that's another thing. So like, yeah, people thought they were safe with Luna and USDC in a pool because it's two stable coins. What can go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. So you got to be careful with that. And Richard's made a ton of posts about that too. Like it's not as safe as people think it is, but it's definitely a lot more safe. Like that's a good point, Briz, with EUSDC and DAI. It's a lot more safe. But like Maddie, what about HEX and PulseX? Like what about that pool? You don't want what's like 5% of your
I like
bag?
my HEX and I like my PulseX, and if one does better, I want to be able to win.
That's why you do like a small portion. Not the
Okay,
whole thing.
but explain a situation where I win, even with a small amount.
Well, like let's say you're putting up. How about HEX EHEX in a pool together? Do you care if you have one or more of the other?
Yeah, I care.
You care if you have more HEX on PulseChain versus HEX on Ethereum?
I want
it's like the
same
stuff
amount. I want to like
Depends
I don't want
if
the
there's
market to
parity.
decide that I'm just going to be wrong.
like I get it. Like it's very valid concern because that is a huge concern because that's the biggest risk is putting up liquidity is that.
And then if you're providing liquidity there, it's like, why wouldn't I just take the HEX and be earning HEX?
Well, I mean, because this stuff should outperform staking HEX in general. Like it probably should, because you're going to be earning fees on the pair in general, and you're going to be earning incentive token depending on what
It
it
will
is.
be providing like 180% APY.
Yeah, it's going to be like stupid numbers like that, and that's going to attract all the other degen liquidity locusts from the other chains to come over because of that. But yeah, your points are very valid to be worried about impermanent loss because it sucks. It really does suck.
Yeah, because I'm going to be earning by just holding PulseX, because it's deflationary. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Well, you won't be earning really. I mean, you'll be earning, I guess, if the USD price goes. Yeah, if the USD price goes up, then sure, yeah, because it is going to be more scarce. You're right. Yeah, it's going to be deflationary. So you assume that the price would go up because it's more deflationary.
Yeah. I can't wait to see everybody get wrecked and then say I told you so.
A lot of people are going to get wrecked, 100%. This is why Richard hates the incentive token, but he knows it's very important. But he hates it, but he knows it's important. So
it'll make for some good content for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, no one talks about it at all.
Yeah,
I'm like the only guy that mentions it sometimes because it's just fun to talk about it too and say it's fun to say stupid stuff like, I think incentive token is going to outperform everything the first 1 or 2 years. And most people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't even know what that is.
There's a picture of a dog coin that can like outperform your lifetime gains in legacy. So yeah, anything is possible.
Shiba did really well. So yeah, did really, really well. Did just as well as Hex, which is crazy. And I think that community is actually positive on PulseChain. So that's going to be interesting.
Really?
Yeah, wow. They know about it, and they're going to want to bridge over their Ethereum Shiba and probably pair it with their. This is where incentive token is going to come in, because like,
yes,
why the hell would the Shiba community want to do that? They're going to see eShiba and Shiba getting rewarded with incentive token, and they're going to want to bridge over their Ethereum Shiba, and by doing that, you have Hart's law in effect.
Yes,
because they're going to be paired. The liquidity is going to be bonded now, so that their PulseChain version should go up or follow it with their Ethereum version. That's the brilliance of this whole system that RH has developed.
So even if SHIB that is like native to PulseChain, the free copy basically, even if that is trading at 2% or 5% of the Ethereum value, when you bridge over and you pair those two and you're earning incentive token with your free copy, that's a fun thing to do in DeFi that you're getting to do for free. You're getting to earn something in a way that like really, what are you risking? Well,
passive income for the win.
You're risking the impermanent loss stuff.
Yeah. So you're risking whatever you're bridging over.
Correct.
But people love winning, having the possibility of winning and losing. So
yeah, that's why I'm sure people just do like 5-10% of their stuff just to play around and play with the system.
Who buys the incentive token? Says Funding Jim.
So the most incentivized pairs will be with the incentive token. And if you want to participate with those pairs, you got to buy the token. This is how Quick worked. This is how Cake worked. And this is so all the people that quoted like QuickSwap went up 2000x, because it did, the Quick token, is because of these fundamentals, like these tokenomics of having to buy Quick for the pools. Same with Cake. So Cake went up like 200x, whatever. You have to buy Cake to participate in the Cake pools, or you just provide liquidity elsewhere and you get rewarded Cake, and you just farm. You just enter it back in the pool and stuff.
Yeah. So there's going to be a game to play. It'll attract the degens and traders and maybe everybody else too.
Yeah, you need these liquidity guys. So like we can hate like these no loyalty guys like liquidity locusts, which RH coined, which is really funny and very accurate. So we actually need these guys to want to come over and bridge over their Ethereum stuff to play around. And the more and if these tokens are valuable, their PRC20 tokens are valuable, then it's more transactions. So that means more more burn for Pulse and more buy and burn for PulseX. So you want more. You want these degens to come over and degen out.
Yeah. And imagine sitting there with your SHIB and you're taking a wait and see approach to PulseChain.
Yeah.
And you got your free copy, but let's say you haven't logged in yet. You haven't played around with it. You haven't pressed the button to connect to the PulseChain. Well, you might end up seeing some rumbling on social media. You might see somebody saying, whoa, the SHIB price on PulseChain, it went up 50% today. Even though it's still trading at 2% of the Ethereum chain SHIB, all of a sudden, you're starting to think that the one you're playing with, is no fun. And then you got the high fees. And that's the other aspect of PulseChain, isn't it?
Wanting to bridge over that. Then you go, how do I bridge over USDC?
Having low fees. So I've predicted actually that when PulseChain launches, the way that everybody's going to find out about it on Ethereum is because they're going to see that the gas fees are so high on Ethereum because people are trying to do transactions on Ethereum to bridge stuff into PulseChain.
Yeah,
Whether
100%.
it's they're onboarding fiat dollars, or they're putting money into Ethereum and into USDC on Ethereum and bridging it over. We saw this even 2 or 3 weeks ago with the Blur airdrop, which was a kind of a fork of OpenSea without fees, that rewarded a bunch of NFT holders and made a huge buzz. Well, the way I heard about it, which I don't think I qualified for it, but the way I heard about it is I saw that the Ethereum gas fees were like 300 Gwei. And I would predict that will be the driving force for the, because I always say that the best advertising for HEX is the price, because it's on so many listing sites and so many places. People make a racket about it, especially on Twitter. But I think that Gwei is going to be a really important advertising event when that spikes up when PulseChain launches.
Yeah, I agree, and I could also see like a Shiba whale has got $5 million worth of Shiba, and he sees that I've got 10% of my value. I got 500. I have $500,000 sitting on PulseChain. I have no idea about what the hell is this other Shiba token that I have now. And there's a pool that's earning 180% APY. Like, what the hell is going on? And I have both of these tokens for free. So yeah, and I could see, and there probably will be spikes in gas on Ethereum for people bridging over. It's a really good point.
And you got to remember, these guys own a K9 coin, so they're degenerates. They're gonna want to start earning those fees.
That's 100%. Yes.
And the overall volatility should be higher on PulseChain because you do have an event where people can dump their free copy, and so I wouldn't be surprised if there are days where there's the price is going down 20% on the free copies, or going up 100% in a day or something, because especially on low liquidity pairs, there's going to be slippage. So that'll create, I think, some excitement for people who are trying to mess around and play with it.
Yeah, the Degens love volatility. They love trading.
Cool. So what else? What else are people thinking?
I got something for you. I don't know if you saw the bow wave graphic I put together this week. I was going to call you Marty because of the Back of the Future thing, Maddie. I almost called you Marty. I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you want to see that. So I did some time travel. All
right, you've got my attention.
So let me turn my screen on over here.
Bow wave is such a good name.
Oh yeah, it's pretty cool. People have seen that. Well, it's part of the FUD. It's the everyday FUD. I was working on it on Friday, and and I'm watching RG3, at the F and Hangout, and sure enough, somebody pops up. I don't recall. Well, he didn't answer it yet. Somebody pops up and says, "Hey, you know what? What do you think about that? What do you think about that 7 billion coming out this month?" And we're all kind of jaded now. And his response was, "It's every month." And then I want to show that. That's what I was working on. I thought it was kind of funny that he said that.
All right, so like the staking wall kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I'll show you what I did. If you throw this up on the screen, I'll switch over.
And if RG3 understands something, then anybody can understand it.
Yeah.
I think he's a lot smarter than
shots fired.
So, I don't know. I got some of the best advice I got in HEX was from him.
Hey, that's awesome.
Saved my ass. All right. So I'm over here to go through this this panel over here. All right, so this is our estimated HEX payouts. This is dated, it's a couple of days old, right? But you see I put my little ocean graphics there, Briz. You like that?
I like that.
That is
great.
great.
You come back with these 3D awesome images, and I've got little stick figures, right? but it kind of makes it. So this is what we're usually used to seeing, right? So you pull up HEX Vision, and you go look, and you look into the future, and you can see all these spikes, right? There's some pretty cool things we could observe about this. In particular, you see how much pink is later in the chart than early, and that's because what that's showing you is the yield that's coming out as part of those payouts, right? And so this forms a situation where, like waves, early on you have a very high wave, and then you might have, maybe 30 days out it's lower, and then 60 days out it's a little higher than 30, but it's still lower, and that type of thing, and it just kind of peters out over time. And so for the new guys, for sure, they're hearing this FUD every month. Oh my God, you got these stakes, they're coming out. Well, so much of them are being restaked, right? And so this is where I started going after that. And then I'll jump right to time travel. So I'll time travel myself. I have a whole bunch of slides in here with different stuff. But I went back in time, and I have this modeled for every day of HEX. And I just chose these days to show. And basically what it's showing is, if we go to something like October 1st to 22, if you were looking at HEX Vision on the 1st of October in 22, this is about what it would look like. And each one of these bars represents another 30 days. So in 30 days, the light blue bar would be coming out. After 60 days, in the 30 to 60 day range, the dark blue. The 60 to 90 day, I get my math right, orange, but you get it. So it's 12 months of what the expected payouts are, with estimated yield included. And so what I'm showing here is that if you go to every month, it changes, right? It does change, but it looks pretty much the same. Big on the front end, waves in the future, and that's been continuing, right? So first off, not a big phenomena that there's a lot coming out in the next 30 days. It just is. That's how the system ended up working, because people are utilizing it. If you look at this little graphic up here in the top left, I think, for your screen, right?
Yeah.
You can also see that the percentage of yield overall is dropping.
I
did notice
over
that
5%, 6% it's gone
Yeah.
down since October 2022 to now.
So short stakers getting wrecked, basically, right?
Yeah.
less-
I mean,
they're
it's
just getting
it's-
less yield.
It's
Yes.
they're getting less yield, and
Less
it's
yield, sure.
more and more expensive. Yeah, and so then I also wanted to take a look and see, and you can see that up here. You can see these little bars here. So this is the estimated yield. It's gone from 8.3 down to 7.2 average for that. And I can dig into details on it another time. But anyways, just trying to track that, but really just trying to establish, yes, we have a trend. And I think, the big trend is that more and more HEX is becoming part of the circulating supply. But as I told you guys, right, I'm looking at the circulating supply. It's going up a little bit. It doesn't look like it's going up some huge numbers. So what's happening is people are restaking it short. And so I think this is becoming a heat sink for two reasons. One, we had such low prices that if people were going to sell, they didn't want to sell, right? And what are you going to do? What's the next best thing from liquid? Stake short, right?
Yeah.
Now we can argue stake long, but from these people's perspective, right? Stake short. And then the other thing is we've got people waiting for the launch. They don't want to do anything yet, and that's been a very strong theme I've seen come up in the community lately. is not staking long until Pulse.
Again,
I think that isn't necessarily the best strategy, but I'm hearing the dialogue. I'm hearing people talk about it.
Yeah, people that want to have liquid hex to play around with on the other side, they want it liquid, but they don't know when it's launching, so they're staking short. Yeah, you're right.
You know, personally, I'm doing 30-day stakes on a portion of my hex, and you know, I'm kind of just waiting for PulseChain to launch, and then on the PulseChain, I want to structure those out a lot further. But you know, I want to do it on the PulseChain and not necessarily on the Ethereum chain. But that's me. That's my personal strategy.
Right on.
But
hey, if
yeah,
you're liking all these takes, hit the like button.
But yeah, I'm super interested. Like I used to think the strategy really was going to be selling your EHEX and try and move that stuff over to the Pulse chain. But I don't know, the closer we're getting to the Pulse chain, I don't know if selling Ethereum HEX is a good idea at all.
You can just bridge it and sell when you bridge it. You don't have to sell it before you bridge.
True.
If you want to. I mean, I'm treating it equally. So whatever I'm going to do on my Ethereum hex, I'm doing the exact same for my PulseChain hex. I'm going to treat them exactly equal. So if I want to take some profit or whatever, or skim some interest off, or restake, I'm literally going to do the same exact thing for both every time.
What would make you change your strategy?
What would make me change my strategy? I think I would never change my strategy because I'd be too late into it to try and emotionally. I'd be too emotional. I'm trying to I wouldn't be able to game it, so to speak, because I'd be treating it exactly the same. And if I see Ethereum hex dips 60% compared to PulseChain hex, I'm already playing my game that I set out. So I'm fine with it being a disparity myself. But for other people, then yeah, they I don't know. I think the best advice is to not try and pick a side.
Cool.
So I think it's going to be close in price in the long run. Close in price.
Good take.
Yeah. But it's funny we're talking about short stakers and stuff like that too, because when you look at the other wallets like Sharks, Dolphins, or whatever, you see these guys that used to have 40,000 TShares, 30,000 TShares, and they've done is short stake this whole entire time, and now they've gotten whittled down to 4,000 TShares because the share prices totally wrecked them, or they've capitulated a little bit too, because if they're short staking, then they can have their emotions get involved with them, and they see price dipping and they can panic because. I mean, that's the beauty of staking, is that you can just take your emotions out of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly was prevented from doing a couple things, from being staked, so I'm on board with that. Yeah, I do wonder what's going through people's minds. Hey, listen, everybody has their own approach. I mean, the system is designed to benefit the longer stakers, but that doesn't mean that short stakers shouldn't exist, So if I was like
I agree, yeah.
like a company and I'm investing company money and the idea is to produce a yield, then perhaps things aren't set up that way in such a way that I can do multi-year. But you know what? 10% APY is pretty good. And to set something up on a quarterly or a fiscal year basis is pretty good.
It is.
Yeah, I think everyone should do a ladder of some sort, whether it's going to be monthly for a year, monthly for like half a year, or actually do like a full-blown yearly ladder, 15 years in total. I think everyone should do some sort of ladder.
That's
yeah. When we're talking about stakers, man, I'm 100% with you on that. That would be my thing. Is you go out 15 years, and then if you're going to continue to do staking, you just keep rolling. You know.
Someone new like that's just getting in now, I would advise them if you have enough hex, whatever that you bought, maybe you bought 50,000 hex, 100,000 hex, whatever it may be, split it up, start 15 years and go backwards 15, 14, 13, and have a yearly stake come out every year at least, so you have skin in the game, because this TShares price is going to go nuts.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the right terminology for this, but I call that buying out risk. You know, so I put money in hex in long term to help strengthen the system, and then to buy out the risk of whatever may happen over a 15-year period, because I don't know. I have a succession of shorter stakes, which makes up my ladder. You know, it's changed a little bit, but that's what I think about. You know, for that. But I 100% agree, because so here's the thing: is I just was talking about just the base use case that you talk to somebody, you're like, hey, we can get yield, and they're like, yeah, okay, we're going to do yield, but we're not going to go out 15 years. Okay, well, 10% is still pretty good compared to the real market or real world out there, not crypto world, you know. But for us stakers, man, you know, and I think this is where a lot of the people who get it in their head that staking is no good, because they see that if they held liquid and they timed the top, they could have gotten X, you know. But what I think they're missing is that longer pays better really does compound. And, you know, and so even just, you know, just the difference you get between going out a month and 3 months is huge. And never mind a month and a year, it's huge. So with that staking ladder, you can actually accomplish a hex flow, which might equal a cash flow at a certain price, much easier, you know, by going, you know, because you don't need as much. So let's say you're trying to generate 100,000 hex a month in yield or something, right? You don't need as much, or even if it's combined, you don't need as much if you're going out, you know, 5 years than if you're going out 1 month. Anyways.
Let me give an example of how compound interest is always going to pay better the longer you hold on to it. So let's say you were trading hex. I mean, even if you were timing perfectly, you might get into a situation where someday staking actually did better than even timing the top. And the way I would look at that is the TShares rate has already done almost a 3x. How good do you think you can be at trading to where as that accelerates, you're, you know, still going to be able to time things? Now, I have kind of given both sides more thought, I would say, than I did when I first started. Because when I first started, I was like, yeah, it's all about holding. And that, you know, that worked for me. But I could see why people trade, and you need both. You need holders and traders to make a market happen. You know, it's really interesting. I was hoping that at some point we'll get into a conversation about whether Richard called the top correctly or not, because I discussed this on Twitter Spaces with people for like a couple hours over the weekend, and that was a really fun discussion.
I say he was close enough.
You are wrong. You are so wrong.
What are we talking about? Bitcoin?
Take that back, Maddie.
Yeah, we're talking about Bitcoin.
Take that back, Maddie.
Okay.
I think he definitely called the top, because that was like a traditional top.
I'm talking about the bottom.
We're talking about the bottom now? What are we talking
I'm talking about the bottom.
Oh, well, you said top.
Oh, my bad.
Brisology.
I think the bottom was also close enough.
Okay, well, it was exactly on, because I tweeted on the day that GBTC dropped to 11K.
Okay.
Okay. I tweeted that out on the day, and I said Richard Hart was right. He had already used that hashtag, so I didn't come up with hashtag Richard Hart was right. But he came up with it a couple days before that, I think. He was talking about things collapsing, I think. I was talking about Bitcoin actually hitting 11K. And if you believe that Richard was big enough by this point, maybe there's people out there, you know, Bitcoin whales, maybe they don't like Hex. But I would say that they like Richard's calls, because Richard's calls have been so good, I would say, that regular Bitcoin, you know, and I'm talking about Bitcoin on chain versus Bitcoin that's traded, you know, as Grayscale Bitcoin, GBTC, which traded at, you know, a steep 30% discount, then got even to a steeper discount at points. But I would say that people were front running Richard's calls in Bitcoin itself to the point where it could not have even dropped on chain to 11K because there's so much buy pressure from Grayscale. So
I can see that.
So when people are out there saying like, oh, you're splitting hairs, or like, you know, Bitcoin didn't really go to 11K, blah, blah, blah. You know, Richard wasn't right. He was close enough. I'm sorry. I have to disagree, because I had a couple $1,000s trapped in the legacy system in like a retirement account. So I bought at 11K GBTC, you know, so it was a fraction of a Bitcoin that I was getting the shares to, but I did that because I was listening to Richard's call.
Nice. Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that's notable that him calling the tops and the bottoms has been so accurate that it's almost like kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's almost like there was enough money on the sidelines listening to that. And it's really hard too, to, you know, to say, oh, that's just wishful thinking. You're all just fanboys of Richard, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can say that all day, but Bitcoin was at like what, 50K when Richard made that call?
Yep.
Everybody in the Bitcoin space, they got the direction wrong, and Richard got the actual price right. That's incredible.
You know, it seems like a common reality, you know, I don't want to say a misconception, it's a conception. It just seems like the elites use like Jim Cramer as a reverse indicator. You know, they're like, he's like, buy the stock, and they're like, all right, everyone's buying it, dump. You know, he says, sell it. Well, everyone starts selling it, and they buy it up at the bottom. Like, dumbasses.
You know, I was thinking about this today. Like, why has Vanguard performed so well? It's like, if you see Vanguard buying something, you want to buy it too.
Mm.
And so that pushes their bags up. If you see Jim Cramer talking about something, you know that's a good time to sell, because it's finally gotten to the mainstream. Who else is going to buy it? The richest guy already bought. Like, who else is going to buy it? Basically, that kind of thinking. And
the mentality though is that you're going to ride the wave with everyone else because you're getting in on it with everyone else, right?
I want to drive this point home about how I have been able, as somebody who didn't know how to time markets and wasn't even really trying to, like, how I've been able to really see where the top was in Bitcoin. And, you know, people who follow the Tuesday show know that QuantGang was calling it pretty much on the week or on the month. Like, and those were all great times to sell Bitcoin. And then, you know, being able to tweet about the bottom, you know, that seems pretty obvious in retrospect, but at the time it wasn't that obvious because it's the point of maximum fear. How did Richard call the top? He's commented on this. It's because that was the day Coinbase IPO'd. Yeah. Where was the top the previous cycle at 20K? That was the day that the CME launched their Bitcoin contracts. Yep. Okay. So it's no longer mysterious. I mean, like, it's creepy that he can call the actual, he knows what the price is going to be. But to actually be able to call the top, like, is not that hard. It's kind of takes me back to what Scotty was saying earlier about, you know, sometimes your emotions are going to get in the way, even if you are seeing all the indicators right in front of you. And so I also want to give the other data point, and this is, you know, I think this is pretty valuable alpha here. We also saw exactly a 10,000x in HEX, and it's I think a little bit more than a coincidence. I think it is, again, an example of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because people looked at where the all-time low was and they set their limit orders at exactly 55 cents. And so even intraday trading on day 656 like was only getting up to 55 cents.
100%. I agree with you. Yeah, it's a lot of emotional stuff too. And I think commenting on like people that try and like sell the tops and buy the bottoms or whatever, that they're winning right now, I think that's very emotional recency bias. Because if you want to look at like the whole scale of Bitcoin, you could have made that case too of like people trying to buy tops. I mean, sell tops, buy bottoms back in like 2011, 2013, 2015.
Yeah.
How are those people now? I mean, did they buy the bottom? Did they hold? And did they try and sell the 2017 top or sell the 2018? I mean, you got to play that game every time. You can't just with just buying and holding. It's a lot easier. Just relax. But you want to do that whole buying the bottom and selling the top. You got to do that every time to be successful. And
Correct.
I think you were dead on with showing that like a lot of this stuff will flip. Where if you would just staked, in the year's time, that'll show that even buying the bottom and selling the top it's not going to outperform just staking the whole time.
And that's going to blow people's minds because it's not very intuitive and it's not easy to understand exponential growth. Like our meat computers are not designed to like process, this level of number go up technology. And so, to wrap up the story, basically, I'm not trading my whole bag. Like I'm doing enough to like just pay attention, which is like $500 buys, like $1,000 buys, stuff, in that range, because I know that the long-term game is going to pay off way better than any kind of short-term game, even if I am doing a good job of commenting on the bottoms and the tops. That doesn't mean I'm using it, even my own awesome calls or observations. Like I'm not really using that to like wreck myself trading.
Remember, Einstein said compounding interest is the 8th wonder of the world.
Yeah.
Listen to that guy.
That's actually disputed.
He also said HEX is the 9th wonder of the world too.
Yes.
Einstein was really ahead of his time.
Yeah, he was.
He was talking about HEX.
Yeah, it's funny you guys talk about the share price too, but we weren't even talking about the payout per T-share going crazy too. You look at those years, like past 2030, it's like 30 HEX per T-share or some crazy number. It gets stupid eventually, like up there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's wishful thinking on my part. That will happen.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. The reason I say that is now, is it possible? Yes, it is absolutely possible. But I'll just talk about people that I know, right? If I start showing my friends that I'm making, you understand how early stakes can be very high in yield already. If I start showing them that I'm making 100, 150%, per year relatively, right? APY, aren't they going to stake? So if they stake, that's going to, we're going to end up with more adoption, which is great for price. So, I mean, I can't see a losing answer here, but I think that we might be a little bit less than maybe at the highest estimates, but there's certainly a possibility, Scotty, right?
Yeah, well, it goes to the fact like they can't capture that share price, and even us OGs can't capture that share price again. So if we're even noticing that it's hard for us to retain our T-shares. We have to stake out longer and
especially
more.
as a 30-day staker. Trust me.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I think I think all four of us would be considered OGs, if that's even a title, right? Yeah. I think a lot of people just don't understand that is true, particularly if they're because they're new to the system. And so I appreciate you saying that, because there is meat on the bone. We get priced out just like everybody else. We cannot play without paying.
Yeah, we have to work to maintain our T-shares right now. I mean, if we if we have a ladder, and which we probably all do in some form, all of us here, our stakes that are coming out this year, next year, whatever, those get like wrecked if you want to just restake just the principal. And you can even look like you just try and restake just the principal for the same time, and it's like less than half the T-shares. So you have to go longer. You have to go even more than your principal too in order to recapture.
Scotty, I did a monthly ladder before big payday.
Yeah, me too.
So my stakes that are coming out right now, which are it's less than 2 years ago that I made them. I have to throw them out. I think 7 years to get the same T-shares.
100%.
Wow.
I'm dealing with it too. I did a monthly ladder. I started my whole monthly ladder for 15 years, and I started it. Like the first 30 days of HEX's existence is when I built the ladder out. And you get like completely wrecked. You have to stake like 7 years out in order to capture those T-shares, and it's going to get to a point where it's impossible to capture the same T-shares.
Yeah.
Especially when the average stake length is 6-7 years, and when we get to those marks, 6-7 years, it's going to be even more impossible to try and capture those T-shares again. That's why this whole 30 hex payouts per T-share, it will be a thing, because we literally can't capture the T-shares anymore. Like, it's just impossible.
Here's a little bit of solace that I've come up with, is that we're not able to.
Yeah,
we're not able to recapture those T-shares as easily, but neither is anybody else.
Well, the thing that you can,
it's an even playing field. That's what I mean.
The thing that you can keep up with is, I think, check me if I'm wrong, but I think it is possible to keep up with like your share of the shares if you restake everything max. Like you would maintain like let's say like your rank in the system.
Okay. I think so, maybe, yeah.
Like more or less, like you could always have like all 2,500 billionaires in the world like all buy in, and then like kind of break that theory. But
if I restake my monthly to the back of the 555, I would get more T-shares than my current monthlies are.
That works now. That's not going to work.
Yeah. Well,
but the problem though is the gas fees on Ethereum. That's my issue.
Because there's like something that ChrispyMan built that basically shows me what percentage of the total T-shares I have.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows me at each point on the timeline where a stake ended or started. It kind of shows me where I'm at on that. And so I had seen that I was starting to drift down slightly, or that basically I wasn't maintaining or increasing how I wanted to. And so that actually changed my behavior a little bit to where I wanted to rebuy my T-shares basically. And so that's another strategy that people can do if, you've been blessed with, especially airdrops and stuff, to not have to sell HEX that's coming out of stakes. Then if you restake for longer, you can still maintain your percentage of T-shares.
Hey, Scotty, I was just thinking another way to maybe help maintain your T-shares is use your Hedron to buy more HEX.
Hey,
could do that.
I like that.
Sure.
Yep, that is a way to do it too.
Definitely helps. Well, why not?
So ChrispyMan is showing the tool that I'm talking about here. That's pulled up for the infamous account 666D.
Godwell.
All right.
One of 7, maybe.
And so can you describe what we see here?
Yeah, sure. So Maddie was describing it, but this is the address, and what it's doing is it's looking at every single day that this address either staked or unstaked, and figuring out the percentage and what league they're in, based on our league standings, from the staker app guys. And so when we look at it this way, we can see, how many TShares started on that day, how many ended on that day, what the total change is, and an indicator of whether it's going up or down. And then how many TShares are held, and what percentage of the total that day they owned. And so even with the God whale on this address, we can see he had started out at 2.4 and had reached a high of 6.2% or 6.27% of all TShares, but he has dropped off significantly
on that one address.
On that one address, yeah, because we're just looking at now. If I put all of his addresses in, it would combine it. And I guess I could do that for you, Matty. You did send me those addresses if you think.
Yeah. So embarrassingly, so I had actually misreported, I think, and I so I wanted to set the record straight that I had ChrispyMan basically audit what I had put together, and it seems like maybe the God whale actually does not have as many TShares as the OA yet. And I think the headline is still, wow, they're really close. And, this is still kind of a historic situation. But once we checked all the addresses again, it looked like, maybe there were 1.5 million for the God whale and 1.6 for the OA or something like that.
I just saw like a 24 million TShares. Was that right before Big Payday?
On this one?
Yeah, right there in the middle. It's on like the third from the bottom. No, just up. There you go.
Yeah. So this is not his total TShares. This is the count for that day.
For the day, all right. Yeah, but that is Big Payday right before, right?
Yeah, but his were 1.6 if all these addresses were together. And so you can see using this. I mean, I haven't done much in the way of analysis for the metrics of God whale, but like everyone, came in, tested, see what the system looked like, right? How does it work? Ups and downs, playing around with the system, and eventually getting all the way to here at the end, where what's he sitting at? 1.6 million.
It's funny you're saying playing around with the system, where I think we just had a 9,000, 10,000 ETH whale, whatever, just enter and just started to play around with the system now. A new one.
Silver the Antidote reported on Twitter that he found a 1,000 Ethereum buy of HEX.
Yeah.
From somebody who had multiple thousands of Genesis ETH still in their wallet. Yep. So what is being hypothesized here is that a new Genesis ETH whale has come into the HEX ecosystem.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah, and you know what? Go ahead.
I was just going to say really quick, and it looks like he's testing out the system. He staked like a little bit short just to probably see how it works.
Really?
Whatever. I think I forgot what it was. I'm just going off the top of my head right now. I think he staked I don't know, for 40 days or something, or 45 days.
Yeah, 49 or something. Yep.
Yeah, just to try out the system, and that's what that's how we all approached it too. I mean, when we first started out, so it's interesting.
I didn't see. Of course, there's some effect, right? Because somebody came in with that much, but I didn't see suddenly charts going in this direction and that direction because of it, right? But I know there's an effect, and actually on some of the other charts that I've been doing, you can clearly see that the God whale, we remember us talking about that 16 billion. That that circulating supply and the HEX stake supply being around 60 billion. God whale is a significant portion of that. So when he makes an action, those things start moving around, right?
Wow.
Now, so I was thinking along those lines, Scotty, too. This guy came in, we think maybe there's dozens of them that might be coming, and so maybe modeling what does it look like when one of them comes in and 5X's their position, or 10 of them come in at that level, and how does that start affecting the system? You know, the type of thing. I mean, it's not crucial to do that. You know, I'm thinking about this like entertainment, right? because we know that they'll change. You know, so I don't know if there's actionable intel on our part, right? But
And Godwill's being pretty smart too. So he's not staking a lot of portion of his HEX too. He's leaving a lot of it liquid because I think he knows that if he stakes a lot of it, he does hurt the APY numbers, and that's a great selling point. You know, you stake your HEX for 6-7 years, whatever, you get 40% APY, and if he comes in and stakes all of his HEX 15 years, that kills that APY percent. You know, knocks it down. And these whales, you know, they can be very smart players. Like Godwill is a very smart player, and he strategically is not staking a lot of his HEX purposely just to keep that APY. Exactly.
That's so cool.
So this whale might be that too. Maybe he's testing it out, and maybe he just leaves a ton of it liquid not because he wants to sell, more because he knows that the marketing is way better. Showing the APY is way better, leaving it liquid.
Interesting theory.
I thought I'd show you this while we're here.
Pun intended.
So, you know, when I was talking about that adjusted supply of the 16 billion.
Yeah.
So this is kind of funny. There's like an inverse chart. The one on the top is that adjusted circulating HEX supply.
Cool.
And the one on the bottom is the stake supply. But you can clearly see the inverse Bart Simpson up here and the Bart Simpson down here at the bottom. That is Godwill. That's Godwill. That's Godwill making a move. Right.
I really like this chart.
Right here where you have this red line, this down here. This is Godwill ending stake and not really doing anything for a while with it. Right. And so again, you had the drop in the staking supply and whatnot. It's really quite fascinating. The system is so stable, and it's, you know, the way it's designed. It's like a genius designed it.
I like how the circulating supply just drops off a cliff after the PulseChain sacrifice.
Yeah, look at that. It dropped in half.
Yeah, because you can see in both of those, right, big drops because they, you know, people lock that HEX away by sending it away.
Question: what is the, like, I don't know, maybe percentage drop between the PulseChain sacrifice and the PulseX sacrifice? Because it looks like not as many coins got taken out of circulating supply right after the PulseX sacrifice versus the PulseChain sacrifice. It's like a little mini cliff.
Yep. Well, I think that I'd have to do more analysis to figure that out, because this includes everything that's happening in the system. And so it's not just that people pulled it out for sacrifice, but I would guess that that's what happened. I mean, just from my recollection, right? Most of us who were ready for PulseChain sacrifice did go heavy with HEX if we could do it, right?
Yeah. So part of the game theory of all this is that we actually didn't know that there would be a second sacrifice.
True. 100%.
And that even though it had been brought up, you know, I think as a theory, I think that most people weren't playing their cards like that, and that was actually a good way for it to happen, because as you can see on the chart there, people kind of sacrificed as much as they could. At least that's what I did. Sacrifice as much as I could, and then I had to push myself to sacrifice more, to come up with more to sacrifice, which meant delaying gratification on selling HEX.
Another thing too is that the price during the PulseX sacrifice was like twice as high, so people only had to put in half as much to get the same amount of USD value.
That's a great point.
Too. Yeah, that's a great point too. When wallet sack? Let's do it now. That'd be hilarious.
I was just about to say, so we weren't sure about that second sacrifice coming, but now we are kind of sure about a third wallet sacrifice.
Great.
Yeah,
How's
psych.
that game theory going to play
Do it
out?
now. It'd be so funny. We're all expecting V3 tested. He goes, all right, we have wallet sack launching in 2 days.
Yeah.
That would be such a curveball.
Unless we decide there's no sack this time.
Oh, it's definitely going to be sack for the wallet.
Definitely.
Right? And he already said it too.
And it's like, that's a force multiplier that I forgot about. Because
more sacks, more. Let's do stablecoin sack too, because it
Yeah.
just gets circulating supply off the market.
it does.
It's fantastic.
Hex is so scarce, people don't even realize it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, man. That's what I said on Twitter too. So when I was talking to you guys about this before, you see this chart here, this area chart? I thought it was going to show me something really cool. And it did. But I was like, what the hell am I looking at?
Yeah,
Right?
What is
I'm
this?
thinking that too. What the hell?
And I didn't do anything special to it. This just shows the magnitude of how much control the OA exacts on the system.
Wow.
Because this is all of the different ones lined up here, right? And so we've got the staking amount, we've got the total hex supply, we've got the circulating supply that the OA owns, the circulating supply overall, and just comparing them. And it acts with such force that we are really, and this is what I was getting at before, we're really just operating in this really, really tiny part of this universe.
Yeah.
So much so that when you kind of go back out to the macro, it appears as if there's no change over time,
Yes.
because that's the kind of control that the OA has injected, and I shouldn't say control, but stability that the OA has injected into the system.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt anyone could say the OA is a bad player at all.
No, definitely not. Yeah, you can't say
I think
that.
Hex was designed better than Bitcoin. I'll
Oh,
say.
100%.
Oh yeah.
And then
I mean,
okay.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say this one's for you, because
What
we
is
talk
it?
about the scarcity. This
Oh, yeah.
is one of the charts that just shows the two and a half almost years of downtrend.
Okay.
And so who's
Wow,
gonna?
look at that.
So when somebody buys another 25 million of the 50 million that are for sale, who's gonna put the next 25 million up? You emptying yours?
Brisology will, or I will. Somebody will. I don't have 25 million, but
I'm joking. But you know what I mean?
I got 25,000 for sale.
But that's the point. The folks in this ecosystem, tend to be long-term extreme holders, right?
Yeah.
I have Hex for sale at $100 each. If anyone needs to buy some,
there's no way
hit me
you
up.
could hold on.
I will sell you Hex
till
for
100.
$100 each.
There's no way. Everybody's gonna sell at $1 and it's gonna go to 10.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to do an analysis on that, by the way, because in early days, a lot of us talked about this. Again, I am not a proponent for emergency end staking and doing bad behavior, but a lot of people had talked about that type of thing, and now it's coming up now, right? Where people are like, "Hey, if we end up with $1 hex, these people are going to eat." Yes, I think that's worth a little bit of in-depth, review to see just how much exposure there might be, at a given point in time.
Let them in stake their $1 Hex. I will
People
happily take those fees.
Me too, buddy. I'll be there. I'll collect those penalties.
People are rushing to EES when we hit 5 cents again. So yeah, it's going to happen. It's fine. It's nice payouts. I like it. Let them get out too, and it's great that we had a nice capitulation too. So it's really nice. All these people exited at such low prices now; they're screwed. So it's fantastic.
Do you guys think Hex is bottomed?
Yeah.
It's pretty much. It's hard to say it hasn't now. We're holding these levels pretty good, especially if we push through 7 cents and make our way to 10 and forget it. It's impossible to say we haven't bottomed.
I don't see it going below 1.7 cents at this point.
It's pretty hard to say. We haven't.
Yeah, I don't think we'd end up with that kind of scenario again. But I'd never say never, right? So we'll see.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, what I've been following, and you talk about those. You were talking about calling the top and the parabolas and all that, right? So I follow this 350-day average, and HEX is above the 350-day average. There's some more technical detail, the golden ratio method, but essentially it has to do with how close these come together. And so far, flawlessly, you could have called all of the last tops for Bitcoin using this. In fact, I did for April of last year, or 21.
Nice.
Because you can, I didn't get credit for that. I don't have big enough Twitter. But all it is basically watching for things to fall out of the parabola, right? And once something falls out of the parabola, it usually almost never gets back in. But things can change. Well, anyways, this is something I've been watching, and so I think the longer we go, the less likely, right, that we'll fall back down. But HEX is a different bird. Ethereum came up and tested that level, and they dropped back down. And Bitcoin did the same thing. And so I guess in my mind, it's feasible to me if Bitcoin and ETH don't hold, there could be some overreaching effect that might affect HEX, but we'll see.
I think it's the only case where we don't get any PulseChain news. Then yes, it'll affect us. But we're starting to decouple really because of the news that we're getting. But what's really funny, we're talking about TA. I mean, no one really in the HEX community is talking about that. We have a golden cross for on the daily chart. So the 50 crossed above the 200 MA, and not really people are talking about it. So that's a very bullish sign that things are definitely turning over. And we're going to get a bullish golden cross of the 55 EMA and the 200 EMA. That's about to cross over soon. So this is all very bullish indicators that we're definitely switching trends right now.
Yep.
I ran a Twitter survey in a subtweet after I was bragging about calling the bottom of Bitcoin, and I asked, "Is the bottom in?" So I don't know if people thought I was talking about Bitcoin or HEX or what, but
I was just going to ask you, what are you talking about, Bitcoin or HEX?
332 people voted, and it couldn't have been more perfectly split. 2/3 of people said the bottom is in. 1/3 of people said not yet.
Well,
pain.
It depends what you define as bottom. Have we seen the lowest price possible? Probably, right? But does that mean we won't see a huge dip? No, we can see an 80% dip, 60% dip. Why not?
Or would you even crab walk for months from here, right?
A crab walk, yeah.
And that will feel like a dip.
Do you guys want to talk about the latest update to PulseChain?
Yes.
Sure. Finally.
I don't know anything about it, so I'm listening.
I don't know like a lot of technical details or whatever. Like I'm not a dev either or whatever. But the sync, apparently they fixed the bug for the Aragon sync, so that's great.
Yes.
Apparently, Richard has a computer over there with 1,000 gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah, that's normal. That's normal server stuff.
Well, my computer is badass. It only has 32 gigabytes. His has 1,000.
I guess you can't fork ETH then.
That's my plan.
No soup for you, Bruce. No soup.
But yeah, no, people were pointing that out earlier, that the picture that Richard put up that said, "This is the screenshot," when they knew that the bug was fixed, and people pointed out it had like 992 gigabytes of RAM. It's like, all right.
Sweet.
Look, I've got a lot of patience still built up when it comes to PulseChain. have started to get kind of a cringe response when people get all excited. Like the way I knew that Richard had tweeted 30 minutes after he did was not because I was checking my Twitter. It's because I looked at the price and I saw the price of HEX was up 10%. And I said, what just happened? So I went to Twitter, and sure enough, the same time the price went up, Richard had tweeted that this bug was completed. And so, then I proceeded to have a really, really, really good debate with people on Twitter Spaces. Tangent was hosting, and I kind of took the bearish position on like the timeline for PulseChain. I'm not saying I'm bearish on HEX. I'm not saying I don't like HEX still being 85% off of its all-time high.
You just played the devil's advocate.
No, I'm just playing like the person who is like trying to interpret what actually needs to be done still for PulseChain. And my list is still looking pretty long.
You're just being realistic.
What needs to be done though? I think like we're pretty
integer
pretty good.
expansion. Is that done? No.
I think
what's my knowledge? I would love a debate on any of this because I could be wrong.
That's just getting the supply right? I think that is done.
No, it means like cramming super huge numbers into like hard drive space that doesn't have to exist on Ethereum. So like here I'll give you a really good example. So like, here's my calculator, right? And then to show like a really big number, then it only goes that big, and then I have to turn it sideways, and then I can fit a much, much, much bigger number on it, right? So that's basically what we're doing with Ethereum, with all the Ethereum balances, all the token balance. Well, actually, it's just Pulse. So it's just the PulseChain balances compared to the Ethereum balances need to hold bigger numbers. But if you think about that, that is filled with unknown unknowns. And basically, if we zoom out, like what is Richard trying to accomplish with like having PulseChain be 1.2 million times like more supply, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to achieve like not having a unit bias. So like nobody wants to buy like a fraction of a Bitcoin or a fraction of Ethereum when they're putting in their first $200. So like the price of PulseChain, should start off like, you get many PulseChain coins for $1 or for, $100 or whatever it is. So there's like a unit bias problem that is being solved by PulseChain having what is being called integer expansion, which means you can fit bigger numbers on the blockchain. You don't want the blockchain to crash if the Godwell, moves, or the OA moves the entire supply of the coins.
Right.
You want that to fit in the blocks, basically in the slots. And so are you following me so far?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think I'm trying to look at his tweets to see if I think he said it was done, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm going off the top of my head. So
it could be. It could be. So that's something I have a question
or something about. Is done.
It's something that basically I'm going off of what Richard has announced that I interpreted, basically, and then also going off of like what's working on testnet, because there are a ton of things working on testnet, especially like the front end side of stuff that is going to be the same. It's going to look the same. It's going to feel the same. It's going to work the same on PulseChain. So there are some things kind of in, the technical details in the background that need to get updated for integer expansion itself to be compatible with everything. And then there are, then there are other things that need to be completed. Now, I can't remember if Richard had said that the fixer bot software is written or not. But then my question would be, is it written for ETH 2.0?
Yeah, that would work the same.
It would?
Yeah, the fixer bot stuff will work the same.
Beautiful.
It was more the consensus stuff that needs to be all fixed around. So like everything else, yes, is fine. Like the PulseX code, PulseX front end, like none of that stuff needs to change. and probably the fix-about code, like none of that stuff needs to change. It was the changing of the whole consensus was the big deal that took all this time. Yeah, I can't find anything about the integer stuff, so maybe that is still a problem. But I feel like him saying that the PulseChain code is done is saying that that's also done, like that problem. But I could be wrong too. Again, I'm no dev. I have no idea about the
Would
back
the
end
fixer
stuff.
bot be considered a complicated task or more of an easier task? I ask because Richard said, the things that seem simple, like sacrifice balances, he said those were difficult. And he said the things that were difficult, and I forget what he mentioned, but he said those got fixed pretty quickly.
Yeah. That TWAP is a pain in the ass, let me tell you.
I think the fix about worked though on testnet v2b, so I think it already worked. Pretty sure already.
I thought he might have said something about it working.
Yeah, I think he did it already. But obviously he wants to do it again for v3 and make sure it works again. But I'm pretty sure none of that code had to be changed. I don't think so.
Well, so my prediction for when PulseChain is going to launch is so broad. I think it could be 2 weeks or it could be a year.
Sir, mid-May.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I plan to meet up for mid-May, so
that would be hilarious. So Richard's never wrong. It was mid-May. He was right the whole time.
Exactly.
So I don't want this to happen because I want it to happen sooner, but I think launching PulseChain in June would be awesome. I think that would be the ideal time to launch it, just because then every 6 months we could have a HEX and PulseChain birthday and just keep people perpetually interested, every 6 months instead of like waiting like a whole year or it being kind of scattered and there's like 8 months in between. It's like,
I like the idea of that, but I want PulseChain yesterday.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, I think it'd be great to launch in June, but I want it now.
So you think you're saying May, right? Well, not you, Bruce, but Scotty, you're saying May. That's March,
it's just
April.
Like poking fun, but it actually could be May, believe it or not, which is kind of hilarious.
I was on with Furu Finance last week. He kept asking, his style is to try to get you to give an answer, right? Of something like, I don't know what kind of toilet paper these people use. I mean, I don't know, but he was really pushing for that. That answer. I think December 2nd might be a good bet.
Oh God.
Why do you like December 2nd?
Killing me.
Yeah, it's the anniversary. Too, yeah. There's some logic behind it.
Please
there's some logic behind it. So let's say we're really close and this thing gets out in another month, V3 within a month, right? That puts us into April. If we have we need at least a few months, I think. We would need a few months to operate. It's plausible, right? So maybe you plan for 3 months, and that gets you, May, June, July. If there's any broke fixes, anything needs to be fixed, that might be another 3 months,
Launches on the 2-year anniversary of the sacrifice.
Yeah, or something like that, or maybe the 4th anniversary of HEX.
I just tell everybody it's 1 to 2 months, and it's been 1 to 2 months since July of 2021.
Yes.
So 1 to 2 months. But yeah, I can see that too. Like testnet maybe comes out pretty soon, in a week, 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. And maybe you only need testing for a month, 2 months, if no bugs, if they don't find anything.
See, I'm looking at a longer time horizon to get V3, and then a shorter time horizon between V3 and mainnet. I could see. So this is what I've been saying. I could see a 10% chance of going straight to mainnet and skipping V3. So not likely at all, but it's in the cards. That's my prediction is in the realm of possibilities. Like it's possible.
Dude.
So they could actually, I was talking to like Alex and stuff like that, and people that are way smarter than me, and they could really launch testnet now, V3, but they have no block explorer. So because Aragon is responsible for the block explorer, and it's a big deal. You kind of need a block explorer for a chain, otherwise you're just doing everything blind. I mean, everything will work, but you can't go behind the scenes and see, okay, did I actually go to that address? You can't actually see anything unless you're like a hardcore dev and like use tooling. So everything it could launch now, but you have no block explorer, which is like really bad. So the whole Aragon thing is a big deal because you need a block explorer. So I think we're very close. I think to test
that's cool. That'd be better than I'm expecting.
Way close. I think we are. Yeah, especially if there's no more hiccups with Aragon syncing, then we're good to go. That's my opinion.
Did Ethereum have a public testnet? I feel like they didn't have a public testnet.
What do you mean?
For V3 or
you talking about Ethereum?
I'm sorry, for Ethereum 2.0.
Yeah, they had tons of testnets.
A lot of testnets.
So I mean, like public and everything.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to them.
Because there's like Go Early, and then there are like other ones that I can't remember the name of. Like, yeah, they're
testing phase like forever.
ones.
Yeah.
It just felt like it went from like this thing isn't going to launch in 6 years to here it is.
That's true. That's true.
Well, it's like the genius devs. They finally give you an update, and they're like, "Oh, we are close." Okay, because the genius devs they talk, and like, "Oh, okay, we're pretty much good to go." We're always waiting on those kind of devs.
How long until testnet V3B?
Oh God, I hope not.
So there was an update by Cassius Bridges reporting on the Ethereum 2.0 Chapella upgrade, which they're reporting includes the Shanghai, and that was successful on the Sepolia Ethereum testnet. And then they were speculating that this is good news for PulseChain. It means withdrawals might be ready for mainnet.
Yes. Yep.
So that's a relevant update on the Ethereum side of the development for PulseChain. Hey, thanks guys for building so much cool software for us to fork.
Yep.
Can I answer a question in the chat from Bloodmore? He says, can you guys talk about the blocks, why they went from 3 seconds and now they're around 10 seconds? And I think the simple answer is that we went from forking BSC to Ethereum. And so it changed.
Longer pays better. So part of the reason why you don't want like way shorter blocks is because you want enough latency. You don't want to like start orphaning blocks, and so
you need everything to sync up, right? Sync up properly.
Well, yeah, and I guess, do you really get orphans that much with the new consensus mechanism? Maybe that's not as much of a thing.
Each new consensus?
Yeah.
Not that I heard of, no. I haven't heard of stuff like that.
Because you know how like on Bitcoin, sometimes you can have a transaction go through and then like they're like, oh, just kidding. We found a longer chain. You guys know like about orphaned blocks and stuff. And it has to get like reprocessed basically. It's like, it's kind of a pretty technical thing, but it shows why blockchain is not faster. And it speaks to like the what's quote unquote called the blockchain trilemma, which is like, you can't have what is it? You can't have faster blocks and more throughput and something else all at once. Like you have to choose what you want. So that's Yeah,
it's like centralization over.
It's also centralization. Kind of interesting that everyone's like, Bitcoin is just a slow database, and obviously that's true, but it's kind of interesting that like really pre 2009 and even during 2009 the technology still wasn't there for Bitcoin to really to flourish. And I always thought that was kind of interesting that like it's really not until very recently we actually have the technology to scale or to even use Bitcoin, really, or cryptocurrencies, ledger, blockchain.
True. I mean, what did it take them 12 or 13 years to finally be able to put a JPEG on Bitcoin?
Yeah. But
hashtag ordinals. Well, and then I heard that they were having problems too, like on Bitcoin, because they put like these NFTs on there, and then they were like, basically you're encrypting it into like one of your Satoshis or something that you hold in your wallet, and then people were sending Bitcoin, and so it'd send their entire balance along with that certain Satoshi. And normally you just get the Bitcoin back in your change address, but it was screwing up their NFTs. So that's like funny to me.
Yeah,
it's still so bad. It's like, it's still so bad. It's a slow database. So I think 10-second blocks are great. I think at the end of the day, I mean, you're probably not gonna notice that much of a difference between 12-second blocks and 10-second blocks, but hey, at least it's good for marketing.
Yeah, only occasionally I notice difference between like even when playing on V2B testnet with the 3-second blocks, I noticed occasionally that it was faster, that it was faster than the Ethereum blocks. Sometimes it would hang, but it's not that big a deal, really. I love the change. We went from BSC to Ethereum. It's way better than we did, because now we can worry about, we don't have to worry about upgrading anything now. So any of the improvements, we don't have to worry about it breaking all consensus or whatever. And now we can actually yield for our staking. So it's huge.
Beautiful.
Yep. The only other thing that I had to mention was, we kind of already talked about it earlier with almost like the buyback stuff, with like the OA buying up the stuff. I just saw an article from Warren Buffett talking about how stock buybacks are just ultimately like good for the shareholders, and people that don't like the stock buybacks are economically illiterate. and then I was just to tie it back into the whole game theory thing, I was just going to mention about how I believe the OA and the sacrifice money is kind of meant to be like a stock buyback type deal, more or less.
I'll argue with you on that.
Yeah, no, because my theory, I don't have any actual solid evidence of the OA, doing anything, but I believe that the sacrifice money and all the ETH that goes to the adoption amplifier, what that's meant to do is that when people, get wealthy off of their initial sacrifice purchases, the OA will use that sacrifice money to buy back the coins they sell. That prevents a death spiral. It holds up the price, and it pays back the people getting out basically with their own money.
I think I don't think we can.
It's a cool theory.
We can only look at what has been done in the past, and the OA has not done things like that. And I think providing liquidity is what the OA has done, and will definitely do. I think probably from the PulseChain side, maybe provide stablecoin liquidity. So people that don't want to take the impermanent loss route, like how Maddie doesn't want to provide HEX and EUSDC. A lot of people don't want to provide that because they don't want to get wrecked. So that's where the OA will step in and provide that liquidity for people for the Pulse. So like Pulse EUSDC, PulseX EUSDC, HEX EUSDC, EHEX EUSDC. So I think that's where, or DAI too, also provide eDAI. I think that's where I could see the OA stepping in for stuff like that. But I don't see the OA intervening to that kind of reach. OA hasn't done it before, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean,
I gotta say, you guys are getting me really excited. Like I was preparing myself to like wait another year for PulseChain.
I think we're right around the corner. I said that Aragon thing, like I was taken aback that, like I was like, why the hell are we waiting for Aragon? Like, what's the big deal? Why can't we just go now? And he's like, yeah, you need a block explorer. So, and it makes sense. I mean, in reality, you could just go now anyway, but not have a block explorer because everything will just work. You just can't see what the hell's going on in the background, but everything will still function exactly how you think it will. But yeah, it makes sense that you want full functionality like a block explorer because it's kind of
so exciting.
So yeah, I think we're extremely close, and the price I think is reflecting that. I think people are really starting to take it serious now. So as soon as V3 ships, I think we're going to be close because I don't think there's going to be a lot of. We tested the UIs of PulseX already.
Yes.
We tested the staking functions of PulseX, providing liquidity on PulseX. All that stuff is already tested. The only stuff we haven't tested is like the validators and consensus. So we test that portion of it out, and I don't foresee us having any issues. I mean, of course, I'm being very optimistic.
I'm gonna share my screen with you guys to show you. This is actually my record of where Richard Hart announced the name for PulseChain and said, "I'm forking ETH," was actually in the HEX Telegram audio chat from March 25th, 2021. So this is not when the PulseChain sacrifice started. This is when he said the word PulseChain first, and when he said he was going to fork Ethereum. And so the 2-year anniversary of that is coming up next month.
When was it? March, you said?
March 25th.
Cool.
That's when he announced PulseChain.
He announced it on a stream though, on YouTube. He announced the idea of it. He didn't announce the name of it or whatever.
Yeah.
He announced like the idea, like I'm thinking about, let's just fork. And then everyone in the chat blew up, and he was surprised how everyone got super excited in the chat. He's like, why is everyone getting so excited? He was like just spitballing about it. I don't know when it was. I have no idea what it was. But yeah, if this is this would be a totally different thing. Him actually saying the name is completely different than that other stream I'm talking about.
Yeah. What was my summary here? What did I say? I said PulseChain.com is the name Richard announced today. Richard Hart answers questions about his decision to fork Ethereum to address high miner fees during a community group call from 3/25/21 on Telegram. There you go.
Wow.
Feels like yesterday.
Went by quick. Maybe not quick enough.
Yeah.
For some people. To me, it went by pretty quick. I remember the days of dreaming about a penny, so that was fun. And penny was like a just like a pie in the sky kind of dream.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that
question. Everyone's pissed when we go down a penny.
that question comes up all the time, right? And people are like, and if you've gotten a chance to catch any of Axis Alive stuff, and just looking at the numbers, I know you have many. I'm assuming Scotty, you know Axis, right?
Yes.
And as you're watching that, and you go, wow, how could he be talking about $2.50 hex? And then, the mid target, maybe it's $12, and hey, it might be 100, right? And you sit here, you think about this, you go like, I'm thinking anyways, there's no way, right? Because I have this number bias, which is I think what you're referring to, is back when we were sitting below, 1.0001 or in that neighborhood and coming up in the first year. I mean, I think we had the same bias, but if you go back and look at the charts and you try to do the analysis that you would do now on that, you can clearly see it happen, right? So, I mean, so I guess what I'd say is this is crypto. Anything can happen, right? We could be sitting at $1, $2 hex with no trouble.
Just wait until hex is fluctuating by $1. every
my
day
gosh.
or multiple dollars. You know, the first time someone made a price prediction and I said, wow, this guy's freaking out of his freaking mind was there was a community member called Good Texture, and he said something like 32 cents by July. And I was like, that is insane. And this was like a long time before it pumped too. This might have been before July of 2020, maybe 2021, but it was right around one of those 2 years, I think. But he said 32 cents. I was like, oh man, this guy is just trying to get everyone hyped up so he can dump on us. That was my initial thoughts when he said those numbers.
I call him bad texture.
Me too.
And look, he tried to. The only time I remember seeing him, I remember he made a video trying to FUD hexagons back when the price was so low. I can't even remember how many zeros there were. And I remember him saying, Richard Hart wants to rug pull this entire project so he can fund his longevity goal. You know, so I hovered my finger over the sell button, but I didn't press it.
He's a trader, so like the traders, whatever they have, they get all focused on. So he had HEX, then he sold it, so then he doesn't care anymore. So that's the trader's mentality.
Yeah.
Go.
Well, it's cool to be around with all you guys who remember the full history here.
Oh yeah, I remember that vividly too. I remember he went on a stream. Richard called him a bitch. He's like, "What? Excuse me? What did you call me?"
Yeah.
And then he's like, "No, I'm from Florida, man. I just say it. I just say it to people." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, he's like, bitch, please. He's all, don't you call me a bitch. He's like, sorry, it's just the way I talk, motherfucker.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, we've had a lot of good, bad entities come in. It's a thing. I mean, we're gonna attract people that want to use us, whatever. Too. I mean, you see our community engagement on Twitter. People that want to use us. It's gonna happen. It's a thing. So, I mean, it just shows that we're resilient and we're gonna stick around, especially as a community too, that we can live through these attacks or whatever, and we've gone through it all. And the chart shows the attacks. Like you can see it clearly when we've gotten attacked, like vampire attacked or whatever. You can see it all the way back from the I don't want to say any names, but like February 2020, that first big dip was the moron that decided to lock all of the liquidity into their pool and never be able to withdraw it.
Very unwise decision.
Yeah, nice.
I want to point out, Briz, that it's like the third time you've been right. At least, just for the chat, because I know they were concerned about it. Oh man,
I want Richard to come back and do live streams again.
Really?
I love the people hating on him for his marketing. It's like, bro, it's working. The marketing is working. You're talking about it. That's the idea. You're supposed to like hate on it and talk about it. Thank you. You're proving that it's working. And people, they give him shit about it. It's like, no, bro, it's working. When next LV live stream? I love it. I love when people get mad about it. Like I love the unboxing. When unboxing stream? T-Don is the funniest guy in the chat. He's always like, when next Gucci unboxing? I love it because it gets everybody mad and gets everybody talking. Like even like I'm in like crypto chats where you're not allowed to talk about HEX. Like you can't talk about Richard, can't talk about HEX. But when he made that twerking video, they were talking about him. And they were talking about HEX, they're talking about Richard, and they're mentioning it. And it's going to get people to then enter HEX into CoinMarketCap or whatever site they use because they're idiots and that's how they rank their coins. So that they'll go on CoinMarket and they'll see that maybe they'll see, oh, look at this joke of a coin. It's only probably got $10 million market cap, and they look, but it doesn't say that. And then they question it, and that's the brilliance of the marketing. And people don't get it. But I think people are starting to understand it now because now I think maybe we're getting closer to PulseChain launch. Maybe Richard's backing off of the whole outrage marketing. So maybe he's backing off it a little bit now because we're getting closer to launch, and no need to do it because we're going to have hype of PulseChain to market instead.
I'm hoping that his going a little quiet, going a little dark, I hope that's like a palate cleanser. You know what I mean? And then when he comes back, he's going to be wearing his T-shirt again and talking like normal.
We'll definitely get back to those days. 100%.
I've always had this idea that he's going to do this redemption arc. Where,
I'm fine with more LV streaming though. I like it. I like the unboxing. I like the hate. It's really funny.
I remember Richard saying on stream one time, everyone loves the redemption arc. And it's true.
That's great.
One of the redemption arcs I like to point out is like on Game of Thrones. The very first episode, you got Jaime Lannister banging his sister, throwing kids out of towers. By the end of the 7th season, he's like everyone's favorite character, and like, I hope he falls in love with Brienne.
God.
Everyone's
rooting for him, So
you're right.
Everyone loves a good redemption.
You're right.
Well, yeah.
I just love that you know all the details that I know.
That show was great until the last season.
Until the last season, you're right. Now I don't. Now I want to forget it.
Yep, I want to forget it too. Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I would really like a Richard Hart redemption arc because that would be pretty legendary.
Oh, he's gonna do his 8-hour streams again. It's gonna happen.
You think?
Oh yeah.
Well,
why not?
He led the way. He's got a lot of competition now, but of course we'd all drop everything and just get on to stream and watch.
Yeah. Well, I thought part of the reason he wasn't streaming much anymore was to prove something about decentralization, to prove something about. I mean, even there was a long time where his commentary wasn't even about HEX. If you really go back and listen to what he's talking about, he's not really, the majority of his interviews are not talking about HEX. And so for him to bring up probably 2 or 3 times in public interviews, he isn't the one who is promoting HEX more than the people who are volunteering. And, he didn't plan the HEX conference. He didn't, do a daily live stream for hundreds of days. And so I think that those are all really interesting points for HEX not being a security, HEX being true DeFi, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, those are great points.
I would love, more alpha from Richard. I mean, remember back in the early COVID days and stuff? I mean, he would open up about all topics. I mean, he was even making social commentary that he kind of took a step back from. So I think, yeah. I mean, there was one stream he was teaching us how to wash our hands. Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember
Got pulled down.
I remember that.
They pulled it down.
They pulled that one down.
I think you mentioned COVID or something. They pulled it down.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. Yeah, I think that he'll return. He'll come back and do this. I think it's not. I think that's a good point. I didn't actually think about it like that, Maddox. That's actually a really good point. I think it's also more there's not a lot to talk about right now either. In terms of being specific to our bubble, so to speak. I think it's a combination.
Until we have something new to play with, it's what is there to really talk about, right?
It's true.
Other than just other projects or just the little bits of information that Richard puts out there.
Yeah, the most he's going to get is when PulseChain is the most he's going to get.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine a mainstream media tour by Richard? I mean, I haven't seen him go out of his way to try to be on the Lex Friedman podcast. Look, people have gotten this wrong on Twitter, okay? Lex publicly invited Richard onto his live stream. Richard said, I'm not going in person, so I will wait for you to change your mind about your policy or, or we won't do it.
Yep.
And, Richard was saying, hey, I've got 8K streaming capability. That's going to be better than in person anyway. Everybody called him a scammer because he wouldn't go to the US, and then he did go to the US. Well, when he was in the US, Lex was in Europe doing a tour there. And so they never actually crossed paths to that extent. And so, how cool would that be in the future if either of them ended up connecting? Joe Rogan, even more Fox News and whatever else mainstream like financial media there would be. That's all opportunity, I think.
I think PulseChain is definitely going to break some barriers to entry.
Because if he, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think like it'll break some barriers of gatekeeping. I think because we're already getting like some sexes are going to launch Pulse. They're gonna list it. So I think it's gonna cut through. You've had a lot of furus, whatever you want to call them, crypto influencers, already admit that they sacrificed, and they don't want to talk about it. But they've admitted it, and they see that bag go up. They're gonna want to talk about it.
It's going to be very hard to promote or talk about PulseChain in a positive way, and then say Hex is a scam.
Yeah.
Or even just say Hex is like bad.
Oh yeah.
It's like how do you justify that?
I mean, if we look back onto the days where Richard could have simply flown over to the US and gone on Lex Fridman, right? Like there was a day when that was possible. So during those days, the Ethereum gas fees were so high. It was almost like there was one criticism of Hex, that everybody was experiencing, and you couldn't have onboarded millions of people onto Hex in that situation without ending up losing a lot to the Ethereum, security theater, like overpaying for security type stuff. So I think that was something at the time I was always thinking was like, well, maybe if Richard's fork of Ethereum isn't too far off, or I wasn't really thinking that it would be, but I was just thinking, why doesn't he wait to do his media tour? Kind of that makes sense that he would be waiting until Hex was finally experiencing low gas fees.
That's actually one of my indicators of like PulseChain is here, is when Richard starts doing his rounds. Like you see him almost on a new show daily.
You think he'll start doing appearances first?
I think so. It's kind of like the whole, you get everyone riled up and warmed up, and then you launch it, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I just heard about that last week. I feel like he did that when Hex launched. I feel like he went around. I don't really remember, but it's just like a feeling that I remember of having
beforehand. That's how I found out about it.
Yeah. He did.
And so I remember there was one time when Richard did start doing like a little bit of a media tour semi recently. I was like, oh my god, I think PulseChain's about to launch. No.
I wouldn't be surprised here. You have V3 testnet out, and then he starts going around and setting up interviews and starts talking. Yeah, that'd be a good indicator. Yeah, you're right. It's a good point. Maybe we're getting close to actual launch. What do you guys think about? Is he going to give any kind of notice, or he like, that's it, mainnet? We're here.
I could see it either way. I would lean towards some surprising circumstances. Maybe not completely surprising, but some element of surprise. For example, something like V3 testnet comes out, and then a month or a week later, mainnet hits, where people really haven't even digested the short-term trading situation. But
yeah, it depends like how he wants to tackle it, because you could set up a buy the rumor, sell the news event by doing something like that. Be like, look, PulseChain's launching in a month. Like, it's launching in a month, and I can't give you a time frame because I don't want liquidity providers to game theory it. but it's launching in a month. I think he could do something like that, and that's setting up a buy the rumor, sell the news.
Yes.
Or he can just be like, we're in testnet V3 for a month, whatever. Be like, oh, by the way, we just forked mainnet's live, and then that would set up a situation where there's no sell the news event kind of thing. If anything, it's just like a buy. You could have a rush of buy. I don't know how price would react to that, but it's definitely not a buy the rumor, sell the news event. So I don't know. I could see him doing it either way. I don't know. What's your thoughts, guys? Crispy, what's your thoughts?
I think I can see it either way too, but I think we'll be given enough notice to do what we need to do, whatever that is. But it's not going to be copious amounts of time. It's going to be like you're going to know 6-7 weeks in advance, and so perhaps it's one of these. Hey, I really think we're going to be done on Friday, and nobody believes it. And then Friday comes, and he's like, hey, tomorrow night, off we go. And then everybody's like, oh, nobody told us. Yeah, I've been telling you, right? I mean, what are you? So I think no matter whatever the sequence is, people are going to be surprised. So, and running around like their heads are cut off.
I think we'll have 1 to 2 weeks notice. I really do. I remember Richard, saying he'll give 2 weeks notice for HEX because, if giving your work 2 weeks notice before quitting is enough time, then 2 weeks should be enough to launch the blockchain. So I think he'll give between 1 to 2 weeks notice.
I think
I can see that too.
Or, he'll just maybe he won't call the top, but he'll be like, hey guys, it feels like PulseChain is about 1 to 2 weeks away, and that will be our notice.
I heard this smart guy ChrispyMan say once that you're gonna see really low liquidity on Ethereum HEX right before the fork happens, and that will open up a wild trading event in and of itself because people don't want to get harvested by the fixer bot, so they will remove their HEX from the liquidity pool. Maybe not everybody, but some people will, and that could create a really interesting situation that would be very hard to predict the outcome of, because it would attract so many traders, and we don't know how much of the HEX that's sitting on the sidelines right now is waiting to sell on any news. And we don't know how much of the money is sitting on the sidelines waiting to buy at any news. And so it'll be really fascinating to see how it all plays out.
You should put me in touch with that guy and I can find out more about what he had to say.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that. That'll be fun. I mean, I'll be very careful if I were anybody looking to trade around, but I do think that's plausible, right? I mean, we know the people, at least sentiment is people would like to pull. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know if that's what they'll do, but if they do, things will be volatile for sure.
Yep, less liquidity. We can move the price easier.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, a slim chance, but I wouldn't be surprised if we hit $1 or $2. Now, does that mean I think that's going to happen? I have no idea. Maybe that's a 5% chance. But if people really get jazzed up and they realize they're not going to be able to do anything on the other side and they're new, how are they getting in? There's only a couple doors, right?
Part of the theory that I've been playing around with is this idea that if a third of the people do still think that the bottom isn't in, then some of those people might have money on the sidelines waiting to buy HEX. And, they might change their minds if Richard, changes his public stance. Richard has not said that he called the bottom at 11K because grayscale counts. Richard still has a tweet pinned at the top of his profile saying that he'll stop bragging about calling the top whenever he starts bragging about calling the bottom. And so that's led, I think that's part of the case that some people are making to say that they don't think that the bottom is in, and therefore that makes me think that they still have money on the sidelines. And look, I think that we all always have money on the sidelines, more or less. Like, for example, I'm going to start selling old, equipment if HEX goes below a penny for very long. Like I've got stuff. Like I could, I could sell a car if I need to. Sell a used car that those things have been going up in value recently. But I'm not doing that at these levels. I've DCA'd all the dry powder I can. And at this point it's, a matter of delaying gratification and, trying to see how it all shakes out. But if we did go much lower, I think that we would see more price support. And if more people change their mind that the bottom is in, then you might see that be another one of the multipliers that causes HEX to take off.
Well, we're already seeing liquidity providers panic a little bit. They moved up their ask to like the 5 cent region now. Like they were down to the 3s or whatever, and now they're moving up. I think they're already panicking a little bit. So yeah, you're right.
Can I brag about one little thing? Is in November, I dollar cost averaged a lot, and I was looking at those rates, and I probably made I think between 8 and 9 purchases throughout the month of November, and all of the purchases were between 2.8 and 3.4 cents per hex.
Those are great buys.
I feel super lucky to have been able to DCA around those.
Very nice.
That's my humble brag. Not really humble,
yeah.
but it's a brag.
It's gonna be way more of a brag when we're at like 50 cent hex again.
Right.
And we have 2 of them. We have 2 hexes that are like a 50 cent hex or whatever. So, oh yeah.
Yeah, DCA is a good way to go, Briz. You know that.
Yes, sir.
I mean, even because we looking at the DCA, if you'd been just doing it weekly from the beginning of HEX, you'd be like freaking millionaire, right?
Yeah, that was an awesome chart that you showed. An awesome date. Awesome thing
last
you showed.
week.
Yeah, that was really cool. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, thanks, man. More to come on that stuff. I find that exciting, right? Because a lot of people looking for this no-brainer passive income thing, and you can't guarantee it, but I mean, you can at least show what happened,
Yeah, I have a lot of onboards or whatever that finally started listening to me. Of course, when HEX is making new highs, I'm like, okay, yeah, now you're listening to me.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah, of course, that's everybody. Everyone gets onboarded towards the highs because that's when they get interested. But I've only had a small few that been buying all the way down the whole time, DCing the whole time. So like maybe like 2, 3, 4 out of like the 40 or whatever I talked to, that the other 37 or whatever, they just gave up. Like, okay, confirm scam in my mind. I'll just hold on it, whatever. And then there's a few that are like, okay, I'll just keep buying the whole way down. And I'm interested to see, you can use your data and see how they performed buying the whole way down a year, 2, 3 years from now. I'm sure they're going to make out really, really well.
I texted a couple buddies the video from my friend Somi talking about price expectations. Neither of them responded back.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy last week, and he's like, is it still a good time to buy? I said, listen, just what you said a few minutes ago. At this price, and at that time we were down at 5.5 or something, right? Yeah. Maybe 5.4. I said at this price, if you're planning to hold till several years or for a couple cycles, it's always a good time, to buy. And he's like, I don't know, and like, is the price going to go up? It's go down? I don't know. It's good, but of course, it almost went up like 1.5 cents since then. So. He was like, "Oh no, the price went up." But the answer is the same, right? At these levels, if you're going to be waiting for a longer period of time by delaying gratification, right? I mean, 6 cents is the same as 5 cents. Not mathematically.
It kind of now the equivalent was us talking to people before Big Payday. Like we have an event coming up, and we know that you're going to get rewarded for that event. So you getting in now is pretty good. It's pretty good, like ROI or whatever. Getting in now, like we have PulseChain coming up. We know we're going to get a copy. It's the same kind of circumstances again. And I had a lot of friends, whatever, miss out on Big Payday, but they saw the run up, and then they got in. So and they DCA'd down. So they're prepared now for the copy.
Yeah, I equate. I really think this PulseChain launch and the copy through the fork is a lot like Big Payday in my mind. And so I think it breaks my logic because, like, I'll tell you what I was thinking Big Payday, right? We were thinking stock split, everything's worth half, it's going to dump, right? I mean, that kind of thing. Well, isn't that kind of what the FUDish view is on this? Yeah, it is, right? Everybody's like, oh, you're going to get your copies, but both sides are going to dump. Well, what happens if that's not what happens, right? And I already have one experience where that didn't happen. Right, I thought it was going to happen, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to hold back and wait till afterwards." Yeah, if I was thinking about it now, I'm already all in. Right, I wouldn't be holding back at all. I think I go all in, which is what I've done. Right.
I think the best thing to look at is history. So history has shown us that forks, when they've happened, when you add up both sides of the forks, they're worth more than what it was previously. So when you looked at Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, after the fork happened, the economic value was worth more than just Bitcoin when you have them both now. And I think that's also going to be the case. So I think you could see like a run up to 10 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents hex, before it happens. Then we get a copy, and then everything dumps like 50% or whatever on both sides. But when you add them both up, it was worth more than the 20-cent hex because you have
that still applies today with Bitcoin and Bcash.
Yeah. You have, so like, let's say that scenario does play. It runs up to 20 cents, we fork, and then everything dumps like 50% or whatever. Maybe you have hex on Ethereum be worth 11 cents. You have hex on PulseChain be worth 12 cents. So the charts, they look really shitty, like just dumped by like almost 50%. But you add them up, it's worth 22 cents. Or 23 cents, whatever, instead of just 20 cents. So you make out still. It's almost like a no-brainer, really.
I don't know anyone nowadays buying Bitcoin Cash, but I just looked up the price and it's $134 each right now. So it's like,
it's still worth money.
Use that same logic on getting free copies of something else and it being worth just money.
Yep.
And when we were going into Big Payday, what was the price? Maybe a penny or something.
Yeah, it ran up to like a penny and a half, I think.
And then we fell, I remember, to a third of a penny after Big Payday.
Yep.
And then it didn't take us long to get back above a penny. I mean, that dip maybe lasted a month or two.
Yeah.
I'm looking right now, yeah.
Because it was New Year's Eve. It was New Year's Eve. We hit like 2 cents, I think.
Well, what I would tell you is clearly staking before Big Payday, even if it was a month or two, would have worked out better than waiting and trying to catch the dip. And now, unless I timed it exactly right and I was standing there, I mean, even when Hexo caught that dip, it was like momentary, that he filled on those, right? And a lot of people didn't fill.
The big, Crispy's talking about the big dip down to a third of a penny. It was actually even a quarter of a penny. I think it went down to.
Yeah. Oh, a quarter. Okay, because I thought it was
0.002.
multiple days where it was at a third of a penny.
Yes, it was.
It might have been up that high.
But there was a dip deeper.
So the Hexo dip is, we're talking about, it went down to 0.002.
The Hexo dip.
That he bought, yeah. So he caught like towards the bottom of that, but then it stayed at a third for like a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
and
Maddie,
all
I'm
of
sorry,
that.
real quick. I got to get going. Thank you for having me on here.
Hey,
And,
thanks for being on.
I really appreciate
My
it. All right,
pleasure.
guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Scotty, good seeing you. You too,
Yeah, it's good
Crispy Man.
talking.
I'll talk to you guys
Yeah.
later.
See you,
All right.
buddy.
See you next time.
See, all I was going to say, last thing on that was, in retrospect, it seems obvious you had plenty of opportunity to do all these buys, but when you're in the thick of it, right, and you see that you hold off because you're expecting this dump, and then you see this dump, and then you're expecting it to dump again, and you're waiting for it to dump, but then it doesn't, and it's same thing with normal bullshit trading, right? And so, for me, anyways, it would have reduced a lot of stress. I would have ended up doing a lot better if I had just gone in before big payday myself, and then I wouldn't even have worried about any of that junk, right?
It's very hard dealing with your emotions with trading. It's super hard. It's one of the hardest things possible. Doing financial decisions and not involving your emotions. It's very hard. That's why this stuff is key. So that's why you can also say like Pulse and PulseX. People are going to have problems because they can sell whenever they want. They ain't locked, unlike Hex. So they're going to have to deal with those emotions through the ups and
Except
downs.
for people who are using Time Pays Me.
Oh, the locking thing, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's coming along very, very nicely. Very nicely. I'm super excited. I will definitely have an update this week. That's good news.
So the software is hard, 1 to 2 weeks kind of stuff that you're saying.
Well, no, what I'm well,
that's a joke. Yeah,
I've gotten an announcement for this week, so that'll be cool.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's been a pleasure having this discussion with you guys. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
Stake wisely, my friend. Stake wisely.
Stole my line.
I think to say it shortly, exciting times up ahead.
Yeah.
To the moon.
Well, everybody make sure to follow these guys on social media, and I've got them linked in the description below. Hit the like button. We have 240 people watching live.
Damn.
Not sure if there are any other Hexicans streaming at this moment.
Hey, if every one of them went to my channel and subscribed, I'd have almost 1,000 people.
Really?
So I'm working close. I'm close. I'm over 600 now. Keep working on it.
Well, let's make that happen then. So these
are vanity metrics, man. I feel terrible asking people to, but it's part of this stupid social media game for sure.
Bro, you can look at the metrics of like Crypto Coffee or whatever. You can look at all these other guys. Their numbers are getting big, and they're gonna get big. They're gonna have a lot of followers, like Maddie, stuff like that too. All the numbers are getting big, and we're gonna be the new crypto influencers. When all these people keep getting wrecked, they're gonna have to start listening to people who are there the whole time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Thank you.
Peace out.